What if I told you? The hardest season of your life is not a sign that you are failing, but a sign that life is trying to turn you into someone stronger than your comfort ever could. Think about it. Why do you only start doubting yourself when things stop being easy? Why does your mind become your enemy the moment life tests you? And why do so many people assume that struggle means they are on the wrong path, when sometimes struggle is the only path that leads to real transformation? Here is the truth no one tells you. Some people are not destroyed by pain, they are revealed by it. And the person you become in your darkest moments will always matter more than the version of you that only existed when life was easy. So, if you've been questioning yourself, doubting your worth, or silently wondering if you're strong enough to survive this chapter, don't skip this video, because this might be the message that changes everything. 1. Doubt is not truth. It is just a thought passing through your mind. Every time life gets difficult, your mind automatically starts creating stories to protect you, but instead of helping you, it often holds you back. It tells you things like, "You're not ready," "You can't do this," or "You're going to fail." And the more you repeat these thoughts in your head, the more real they begin to feel. But here's the truth Buddhism teaches. A thought is just a thought, not a fact, not reality, just something your mind produces for a moment and then lets go. Just like clouds pass through the sky without staying forever, your thoughts also come and go. But the problem starts when you grab onto them and believe them without questioning. Think about it carefully. Just because your mind says something negative doesn't mean it's true. Your mind has been shaped by past experiences, fears, and habits, so sometimes it reacts automatically without understanding the present moment. When you begin to observe your thoughts instead of instantly believing them, something powerful happens. You create a small gap between you and your mind, and in that gap, you gain control. You start to see doubt for what it really is, a temporary voice, not your identity. The moment you stop treating every negative thought as truth, you take your power back. Doubt only feels strong when you feed it with attention and belief. But when you simply notice it and let it pass without reacting, it loses its grip on you. And in that quiet space where you are no longer controlled by your thoughts, your real confidence and inner strength begin to rise naturally. 2. Struggle is the path, not the obstacle. Most people believe that struggle means something is going wrong in their life, but Buddhism teaches something completely different. Struggle is not blocking your path, it is the path. Every challenge, every delay, every difficult moment is not there to stop you. It is there to shape you into someone stronger and more aware. The problem is, when things get hard, your mind immediately resists and asks, "Why is this happening to me?" And that resistance creates frustration and self-doubt. But think about it honestly. The moments that changed you the most were never easy. They were the times when you felt uncomfortable, uncertain, and pushed beyond your limits. That is where growth actually happens. If everything in your life was easy, you would never develop strength, patience, or clarity. Struggle forces you to adapt, to learn, and to become better than who you were before. When you start seeing struggle as a teacher instead of an enemy, your mindset begins to shift. Instead of feeling defeated, you become curious. You start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" And that question alone puts you back in control. Because now, you are no longer running away from difficulty, you are learning from it. And the more you learn, the more confident you become, not because life is easy, but because you know you can handle whatever comes next. 4. You suffer more from your interpretation than from reality itself. Most of the pain you feel in life is not created by what actually happens. It is created by the way your mind interprets what happens. This is one of the deepest teachings in Buddhism, And once you truly understand it, it can completely change how you experience difficult situations. Because the truth is, events in life are often neutral at their core, but your mind quickly labels them as bad, unfair, or a failure. And that label is what creates emotional suffering. Think about a simple situation. Someone doesn't reply to your message. The event itself is just silence, nothing more. But your mind starts building a story around it. They are ignoring me. I'm not important. I did something wrong. Within seconds, your mood changes, your energy drops, and you start overthinking. But the reality hasn't changed. Only your interpretation has. Another person in the same situation might simply think, they're probably busy, and move on without any emotional disturbance. The difference is not the situation, it is the meaning attached to it. This is why two people can go through the same struggle, yet one becomes stronger while the other feels broken. One person sees the situation as a lesson or a challenge to grow, while the other sees it as proof that life is against them. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises when you resist reality and attach negative meaning to it. When you say, "This should not be happening," you create inner conflict, and that conflict turns a simple problem into deep emotional pain. Now imagine shifting your perspective. Instead of immediately labeling a situation as negative, you pause and observe it without judgment. You ask yourself, is this really as bad as my mind is making it? Or, what else could this mean? Maybe that rejection is not failure, but redirection. Maybe that delay is not punishment, but preparation. When you allow different meanings to exist, you free yourself from the trap of automatic negative thinking. The moment you understand that your interpretation creates your suffering, you take your power back. Because if your mind can create pain through interpretation, it can also create peace by changing that interpretation. This does not mean ignoring reality or pretending everything is perfect. It means seeing things clearly without adding unnecessary mental suffering on top of them. When you stop reacting to every situation with negative assumptions, your mind becomes calmer, your emotions become stable, and you begin to experience life with more clarity and control. 5. Impermanence means this moment will not last forever. One of the most powerful and life-changing truths in Buddhism is the understanding of impermanence, the idea that everything in life is constantly changing. Nothing stays the same forever. Not your emotions, not your struggles, not your failures, and not even the situations that feel overwhelming right now. But the problem is, when life gets hard, your mind convinces you that this moment is permanent. It makes you feel like this pain will never end, like this situation will define your entire life. And that belief is what creates hopelessness and self-doubt. Think about your past for a moment. There were times when you felt completely lost, stressed, or broken. Moments where you thought things would never get better. But somehow, those moments passed. You moved forward, you adapted, and life continued. The same truth applies to what you are going through right now. This moment, no matter how heavy it feels, is temporary. It is just a phase in a much bigger journey, not your final destination. Buddhism teaches that suffering increases when you cling to the idea that things should stay the same, or when you believe that difficult moments will last forever. When you resist change, you create tension in your mind, and that tension turns temporary discomfort into long-term suffering. But when you accept that everything is always changing, you begin to relax your grip. You stop fighting the moment and start moving with it. Imagine treating your difficult emotions like waves in the ocean. They rise, they peak, and then they fall. If you try to fight the wave, it overwhelms you, but if you allow it to pass, it naturally loses its power. Your sadness, your stress, your doubt, all of it works the same way. The more you hold on to it and overthink it, the longer it stays. But when you accept that it is temporary, it begins to fade on its own. This understanding brings a deep sense of patience and inner peace. You no longer panic when things go wrong, because you know this is not forever. You stop making permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. Instead of saying, "My life is falling apart," you begin to say, "This is just a difficult moment, and it will pass." That small shift in thinking protects your mind from unnecessary suffering. When you truly understand impermanence, you also begin to trust life more. You realize that just as bad times pass, good times can come again. You stop doubting yourself in hard moments because you know they are not here to stay. They are here to teach, to shape, and then to leave. And with that awareness, you develop a quiet strength, a kind of calm confidence that says, "No matter what happens, I will get through this." 6. Let go of who you think you should be. One of the deepest reasons you doubt yourself, especially when life gets hard, is not because you are actually failing, but because you are constantly comparing yourself to an imagined version of who you think you should already be. Somewhere along the way, you created a mental image of your ideal self. Someone who is always confident, always successful, always in control, someone who has everything figured out by now. And every time your real life does not match that image, your mind starts attacking you. It says, "You are behind, you are not enough, you should be doing more, you should be better." And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to believe that something is wrong with you. But Buddhism teaches something powerful that most people never truly accept. You are not supposed to be anywhere else except where you are right now. Life is not a race with a fixed timeline, and there is no universal schedule that says, by a certain age, you must have everything figured out. That pressure you feel is not coming from reality. It is coming from your own expectations, from comparison, from social conditioning, and from the illusion that everyone else is ahead of you. When you carry this constant expectation of who you should be, you create a silent conflict inside yourself, a gap between your current reality and your imagined identity, and that gap is where doubt lives. Think about it carefully. When do you feel the most anxious, the most insecure, and the most frustrated? It is usually when you are thinking about where you should be instead of accepting where you are. You look at others and feel like you are falling behind. You look at your goals and feel like you are not moving fast enough. You look at your past and feel like you wasted time. But none of these thoughts are helping you move forward. They are only draining your energy and weakening your confidence. The more you fight your current reality, the more disconnected you become from your own progress. Buddhism teaches acceptance, not as a way of giving up, but as a way of creating clarity. Acceptance means seeing yourself honestly without judgment. It means recognizing that you are a work in progress, and that growth takes time. When you accept where you are, you stop wasting energy on self-criticism and start using that energy to actually improve. You move from a state of resistance to a state of awareness. And in that awareness, you begin to understand that your journey is unique, your pace is your own, and your path does not need to look like anyone else's. Letting go of who you think you should be does not mean you stop growing. It means you stop forcing unrealistic expectations on yourself. It means you stop trying to become someone else and start becoming more of who you already are. Growth becomes natural instead of stressful. You begin to take actions not from pressure, but from clarity. You stop asking, "Why am I not there yet?" and start asking, "What is the next step I can take from where I am?" That simple shift brings a sense of calm and direction that doubt cannot survive in. Another important thing to understand is that your ideal self is often based on incomplete information. You see other people's success, their confidence, their achievements, but you do not see their struggles, their failures, or the time it took them to get there. You compare your behind the scenes to their highlight reel, and that creates an unfair standard that no one can meet. When you realize this, you begin to question the image you have been chasing. You begin to understand that perfection is not real, and chasing it will only keep you stuck in a cycle of dissatisfaction. When you let go of this unrealistic image, something powerful happens. You begin to feel lighter. You stop carrying the constant pressure to prove yourself. You stop measuring your worth based on how close you are to an imagined version of success. Instead, you start appreciating your progress, no matter how small it is. You begin to see value in your efforts, your learning, and your resilience. And that shift in perspective builds real confidence, not the fragile kind that depends on results, but the stable kind that comes from self-acceptance. This also changes the way you deal with failure. When you are attached to who you think you should be, failure feels like proof that you are not good enough. But when you let go of that attachment, failure becomes feedback. It becomes part of the process, not something that defines you. You stop taking every setback personally and start seeing it as a step forward, even if it does not feel like it in the moment. This mindset removes fear, and when fear is reduced, doubt loses its strength. Letting go also helps you stay present. When you are constantly thinking about who you should be, your mind is always in the future, worrying, comparing, and judging. But when you accept yourself as you are, you bring your focus back to the present moment. And the present moment is the only place where real change can happen. You cannot grow in the future. You can only grow through what you do right now. By staying present, you become more aware of your actions, your habits, and your choices, and that awareness leads to consistent progress. There is also a deeper layer to this lesson. The identity you are holding onto, the person you think you should be, is not fixed. It is something your mind created based on experiences, beliefs, and influences. Buddhism teaches that the self is constantly changing. There is no permanent version of you. When you understand this, you stop clinging to a rigid identity. You allow yourself to evolve, to explore, and to grow without being trapped by expectations. You give yourself permission to change, and that freedom opens the door to real transformation. When life gets hard, instead of doubting yourself because you are not who you think you should be, remind yourself of this truth. You are exactly where you need to be in this moment, learning what you need to learn, growing at your own pace. You are not behind, you are in progress. Every step you take, even the small ones, is moving you forward. So let go of the pressure, let go of the comparison, and let go of the version of yourself that only exists in your mind. Focus on who you are becoming, not who you think you should already be. Because the moment you stop fighting yourself, you start working with yourself, and that is when real growth begins. 7. Trust the process. Your life is unfolding, not falling apart. One of the biggest reasons you start doubting yourself when life gets hard is because you assume that everything is going wrong. The moment things don't go according to your expectations, your mind quickly jumps to negative conclusions. It tells you that you're failing, that you're losing control, that your life is falling apart. But what if that perspective is completely wrong? What if the very things you think are breaking your life are actually building it in ways you cannot yet understand? Buddhism teaches a powerful truth that most people struggle to accept. Life is not something you control completely, it is something that unfolds. There is a natural flow to everything, and when you resist that flow, you create stress, confusion, and doubt. But when you begin to trust the process, even when it doesn't make sense, you allow life to guide you instead of fighting against it. This does not mean you become passive or stop taking action. It means you stop trying to control every outcome and start focusing on what you can actually control. your effort, your mindset, and your response to situations. Think about your past again. There were moments when things didn't go the way you wanted, opportunities you lost, plans that failed, people who left, situations that hurt you deeply. At that time, it probably felt like everything was going wrong. But later, you may have realized that some of those moments were necessary. They pushed you in a different direction, taught you something important, or removed something that was not meant to stay in your life. The problem is, when you are inside a difficult moment, you cannot see the bigger picture. You only see the discomfort, the uncertainty, and the lack of clarity. And that is exactly when doubt becomes strongest. Your mind wants immediate answers. It wants certainty. It wants to know that everything will work out exactly the way you planned. But life does not work like that. Growth is unpredictable, progress is not always visible, and sometimes things fall apart before they come together. When you expect life to be smooth and controlled, every unexpected challenge feels like failure. But when you understand that uncertainty is part of the process, you stop reacting with fear and start responding with patience. Trusting the process means accepting that you don't need to have everything figured out right now. It means understanding that confusion is not a sign that you are lost. It is a sign that you are in transition. Just like a seed underground cannot see the sunlight yet, but is still growing. You may not see your progress, but that does not mean it is not happening. Some of the most important changes in your life are invisible at first. They happen internally, in your mindset, your perspective, your resilience, and over time, those internal changes create external results. Another important part of trusting the process is letting go of the need for immediate results. In today's world, you are constantly exposed to quick success stories, instant results, and overnight transformations. This creates an unrealistic expectation that progress should be fast and visible. When it's not, you begin to doubt yourself. You feel like you are not doing enough, or that something is wrong with you. But real growth takes time. It is slow, consistent, and often uncomfortable. It requires patience, discipline, and trust. Buddhism emphasizes the importance of staying present because the present moment is the only place where the process exists. When you are always focused on the future, worrying about results, you disconnect from the actions that actually create those results. Trusting the process means giving your full attention to what you are doing right now, without constantly questioning whether it will work or not. It means showing up every day, even when you don't feel motivated, even when you don't see immediate progress. Because consistency, not perfection, is what moves you forward. There is also a deeper emotional aspect to this. When you don't trust the process, you live in a constant state of anxiety. You are always worried about what might go wrong, always overthinking every decision, always doubting your path. This drains your energy and makes even simple situations feel overwhelming. But when you begin to trust, something shifts inside you. You feel calmer. You stop overreacting to every setback. You become more stable, more focused, and more resilient. Not because life becomes easier, but because you are no longer fighting it at every step. Trusting the process also means accepting that failure is not the end. It is part of the journey. Every successful person has faced setbacks, mistakes, and moments of doubt. The difference is, they did not see those moments as proof that they should stop. They saw them as part of the process of becoming better. When you adopt this mindset, failure loses its power over you. It becomes something you learn from, not something that defines you. It is also important to understand that not everything that leaves your life is a loss. Sometimes, people, opportunities, or situations are removed because they are no longer aligned with your growth. But when you are attached, it feels like something is being taken away from you. This creates pain and doubt. You start questioning yourself, wondering what you did wrong. But trusting the process means believing that what is meant for you will stay, and what is not meant for you will naturally fall away. This belief allows you to let go with less resistance and more peace. As you continue to trust the process, you begin to develop a quiet confidence. It is not loud or dependent on external validation. It is a deep inner knowing that no matter what happens, you will figure it out. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop comparing your journey to others. You focus on your own path, your own progress, your own growth. And that focus gives you strength. When life gets hard, remind yourself that you are not falling apart. You are being reshaped. Every challenge is refining you. Every delay is preparing you. Every moment of uncertainty is teaching you to trust yourself more deeply. The path you are on may not be clear right now, but that does not mean it is wrong. Sometimes, the most meaningful journeys are the ones that make the least sense in the beginning. So instead of doubting yourself every time things don't go as planned, pause and breathe. Remind yourself that you are in the middle of a process, not at the end of your story. Keep showing up. Keep learning. Keep moving forward, even if the steps feel small, because over time, those small steps create something powerful. They create a version of you that is stronger, wiser, and more aligned with who you are meant to become. Trust the process, even when it is slow. Trust the process, even when it is unclear. Trust the process, even when it feels uncomfortable. Because your life is not falling apart. It is unfolding exactly as it needs to. 8. You are not behind. You are being prepared. One of the most painful thoughts that quietly destroys your confidence is the belief that you are behind in life. You look at others and feel like they are moving faster, achieving more, becoming something greater, while you feel stuck, slow, or lost. And in those moments, doubt begins to grow inside you. You start questioning your path, your choices, and even your worth. But Buddhism offers a perspective that can completely shift how you see this feeling. You are not behind, you are being prepared. The idea of being behind is not a fact, it is a comparison. It only exists when you measure your life against someone else's timeline. But here is the truth most people ignore. There is no universal timeline for life. There is no fixed age where you must succeed, no specific moment where everything must come together. Life does not move in a straight line, and your journey is not meant to look like anyone else's. When you compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 10, you create an illusion that you are failing, when in reality, you are simply at a different stage. Think about this deeply. Every person you admire, every person you think is ahead, has gone through their own struggles, delays, confusion, and setbacks. You are only seeing their current position, not the path it took to get there. You do not see the nights they doubted themselves, the failures they faced, or the time they spent figuring things out. So when you compare yourself to them, you are comparing your full reality to their highlight, and that will always make you feel behind. Buddhism teaches that everything unfolds at its own pace. Just like a tree grows in its own time, without rushing, without comparing itself to another tree, your life also has its own rhythm. Some trees grow fast but are weak, others grow slowly but develop deep roots that make them strong and stable. In the same way, your journey may feel slow right now, but that does not mean it is wrong. It may mean that you are building something deeper, something more lasting, something that cannot be rushed. When life slows you down, it is not always a sign that you are stuck. Sometimes it is a sign that you are being prepared. Preparation is not always visible. It happens quietly in your mindset, your habits, your resilience, and your understanding of life. You may not see immediate results, but you are developing the strength and awareness that will support you when the opportunity comes. And without that preparation, even success can become unstable. The problem is, your mind wants quick results. It wants proof that you are moving forward. It wants visible progress to feel secure. But real growth does not always show itself immediately. It often feels slow, uncertain, and even frustrating. This is why many people give up too early. They assume that because they cannot see progress, it is not happening. But just like roots grow underground before a tree becomes visible, your growth is happening even when you cannot see it. Another reason you feel behind is because you focus too much on outcomes instead of progress. You look at where you want to be and feel discouraged because you are not there yet. But you forget to look at how far you have already come. Every lesson you have learned, every challenge you have faced, every step you have taken, all of it is progress. When you shift your focus from what is missing to what is improving, your mindset changes. You begin to feel more confident, more grounded, and less pressured by unrealistic expectations. Buddhism also teaches the importance of presence. When you are constantly thinking about being behind, your mind is trapped in the future, worrying about where you should be instead of focusing on where you are. But the present moment is the only place where you can actually take action. When you bring your attention back to the present, you stop wasting energy on comparison and start using that energy to improve your current situation. It is also important to understand that everyone's path includes periods of stillness, times where nothing seems to be moving, where things feel uncertain, where progress feels slow. These moments are not wasted time, they are part of the process. They give you space to reflect, to learn, to adjust your direction. Without these pauses, you would keep moving without awareness, repeating the same mistakes. Stillness is not failure. It is preparation for the next phase of your journey. When you truly accept that you are not behind, something inside you relaxes. The pressure begins to fade. You stop rushing, you stop forcing, and you start moving with more clarity. Your actions become more intentional, your decisions become more thoughtful, and your growth becomes more stable. You are no longer trying to prove something to others. You are simply focused on becoming better than you were yesterday. There is also a deeper freedom in letting go of this belief. When you stop seeing yourself as behind, you stop doubting your path. You begin to trust that everything is happening at the right time, even if it does not make sense right now. You stop chasing validation and start building your own direction. This creates a quiet confidence that is not dependent on comparison, but on self-awareness. Remember this clearly. Being behind is an illusion created by comparison. Your journey is unique, your pace is your own, and your timing is not wrong. You are not late, you are learning. You are not stuck, you are growing. You are not falling behind, you are being prepared for something that requires a stronger, wiser, and more aware version of you. So, the next time you feel like you are behind in life, pause and question that thought. Ask yourself, is this really true? Or am I just comparing myself to someone else? Bring your focus back to your own path. Look at your progress, no matter how small it is. Trust that what you are building right now, even if it feels slow, is creating a foundation for something greater. Because in the end, life is not about who gets there first. It is about who becomes strong, aware, and aligned along the way. And if you stay patient, stay consistent, and trust your journey, you will realize something powerful. You were never behind. You were always exactly where you needed to be. 9. The second arrow. You are hurting yourself. More than life is hurting you. There is a powerful teaching in Buddhism known as the second arrow, and once you truly understand it, it can completely transform the way you experience pain, struggle, and self-doubt. The idea is simple, but very deep. In life, you will inevitably be struck by the first arrow, This is the pain that comes from real events: rejection, failure, loss, disappointment, things that happen outside of your control. That pain is natural, unavoidable, and part of being human. But what most people do not realize is that after the first arrow hits, they immediately shoot a second arrow at themselves, and this second arrow is completely self-created. The second arrow is your reaction, your overthinking, your negative self-talk, your constant replaying of the situation in your mind. It is the voice that says, "Why did this happen to me? I'm not good enough. This always happens to me. I'll never get it right." And this second arrow often hurts more than the first one, because while the first arrow is temporary, the second arrow can last for hours, days, or even years, simply because you keep feeding it with your thoughts. Think about a moment when something small went wrong. Maybe someone ignored you, maybe you made a mistake, maybe something didn't go as planned. The actual event might have lasted only a few seconds, but your mind kept going. You replayed it again and again, analyzing every detail, creating different scenarios, imagining worse outcomes, blaming yourself, questioning your worth. The situation itself was not that big, but your mind made it feel overwhelming. That is the second arrow in action. Buddhism teaches that while you cannot always control the first arrow, you have complete control over the second one. You cannot stop life from being difficult at times, but you can stop yourself from adding unnecessary suffering on top of it. And this is where most people go wrong. They don't realize that a large part of their pain is not coming from life itself, but from the way they are thinking about it. When life gets hard, your mind automatically goes into defense mode. It tries to make sense of the situation, to protect you from future pain, but instead of helping, it often creates more suffering. It exaggerates the problem, it makes it feel permanent, and it turns a single moment into a long-lasting emotional struggle. This is why two people can go through the same experience, and one moves on quickly while the other stays stuck. The difference is not the situation, it is how much they engage with the second arrow. Now, imagine a different response. Imagine something goes wrong, and instead of immediately reacting, you pause. You acknowledge the pain, but you do not add extra meaning to it. You do not tell yourself that you are a failure. You do not replay the moment again and again. You simply allow the experience to exist without turning it into a story about yourself. In that moment, you stop the second arrow from being created. This does not mean you ignore your emotions or pretend that nothing happened. It means you feel the pain without making it worse. You accept the situation as it is, without adding layers of judgment, blame, or fear. This is a powerful form of awareness. It allows you to experience life more clearly, without being trapped by your own thoughts. One of the biggest ways the second arrow shows up in your life is through self-doubt. When something goes wrong, instead of seeing it as a single event, you turn it into a reflection of who you are. You say, "I failed, so I must be a failure." You say, "I made a mistake, so I'm not capable." This is the second arrow turning a moment into an identity. And once you start believing that identity, doubt becomes a constant part of your life. But the truth is, one moment does not define you. One mistake does not determine your worth. These are just experiences, not labels. When you stop attaching your identity to your struggles, you free yourself from unnecessary suffering. You begin to see yourself more clearly, not as someone who is failing, but as someone who is learning and growing. Another way the second arrow affects you is by keeping you stuck in the past. You replay situations over and over again, thinking about what you should have said, what you could have done differently, how things could have turned out better. But no matter how many times you replay it, the past does not change. All it does is keep you emotionally connected to something that is already over. This drains your energy and prevents you from moving forward. Buddhism teaches the importance of letting go, Not because the past does not matter, but because holding on to it creates unnecessary suffering. When you let go of the second arrow, you allow yourself to heal. You stop reopening the same wound again and again. You accept what happened, learn from it, and move forward with more awareness. The second arrow also creates fear about the future. When something goes wrong, your mind starts predicting more problems. It tells you that things will get worse, that you will fail again, that you are not ready for what's coming. And this fear makes you hesitate. It makes you avoid opportunities. It keeps you in your comfort zone. But again, this fear is not based on reality. It is based on your thoughts about reality. When you understand the second arrow, you begin to question these thoughts. You start to see that just because your mind predicts something negative does not mean it will happen. You stop letting fear control your decisions. You take action even when you feel uncertain, because you know that doubt is just a thought, not a fact. This awareness gives you a new kind of strength. It is not the strength of avoiding pain, but the strength of not adding unnecessary suffering to it. You become more resilient, not because life becomes easier, but because you stop making it harder than it needs to be. You handle situations with more clarity, more calmness, and more control. When you stop shooting the second arrow, something powerful happens. Your mind becomes quieter. You stop overthinking every situation. You stop reacting to every small problem as if it is a big one. You create space between you and your thoughts, and in that space, you find peace. Not because everything in your life is perfect, but because you are no longer fighting yourself. This also changes how you see struggle. Instead of seeing it as something that is breaking you, you begin to see it as something that is shaping you. You stop taking everything personally. You stop assuming that every problem is a sign that you are failing. You understand that life will always have challenges, but your response to those challenges determines your experience. So, the next time something goes wrong, remember this. The first arrow is part of life. It is unavoidable. But the second arrow is your choice. You can either make the situation heavier by overthinking, doubting, and blaming yourself, or you can allow it to pass without adding unnecessary suffering. That choice is always yours. And the more you choose to let go of the second arrow, the more your mind becomes free. Free from constant worry, free from unnecessary pain, free from the cycle of self-doubt. You begin to trust yourself more, not because life is always easy, but because you know you can handle it without turning it into something bigger than it is. Stop hurting yourself more than life is hurting you. Stop turning small problems into big struggles. Stop letting your mind create pain that does not need to exist. Because once you understand the second arrow, you realize something powerful. Your peace has always been in your control. You just needed to stop fighting yourself to find it. 10. Your inner peace is your responsibility. No one else can control it unless you let them. One of the hardest truths to accept, but also one of the most powerful, is this. Your inner peace is your responsibility. Not your circumstances, not other people, not the way life unfolds, but you. And the moment you truly understand this, everything about the way you experience life begins to change. Because most of the time, when you feel disturbed, anxious, or emotionally shaken, it is not just because of what happened. It is because you allowed something outside of you to take control of what is happening inside of you. Think about how easily your mood can shift. One message, one comment, one moment of disrespect, one delay, and suddenly your peace is gone. You were fine just a few minutes ago, but now your mind is racing, your emotions are reacting, and your entire state has changed. The question is, what really happened? Did your life suddenly become worse, or did your mind give that situation power over you? Because the truth is, people only control your emotions when you react in the way they expect you to. The moment you react, explain, or try to prove something, you hand over your peace without even realizing it. Buddhism teaches that attachment is the root of suffering, and one of the biggest attachments people have is the need for control over others, their behavior, their opinions, their responses. You want people to treat you a certain way. You want situations to go according to your expectations, and when they don't, you feel hurt, frustrated, or angry. But the deeper truth is, you are not suffering because of what happened. You are suffering because reality did not match your expectations. The more you depend on external things to feel okay, the more fragile your peace becomes. If your happiness depends on people texting you back, respecting you, agreeing with you, or treating you the way you want, then your emotional state is always in someone else's hands. That means at any moment, your peace can be taken away, not because you are weak, but because you gave others that power. But here is where everything changes. The moment you decide that your peace is your responsibility, you stop waiting for the world to behave in a certain way for you to feel okay. You stop expecting people to understand you, to validate you, to treat you perfectly. Instead, you focus on your own response. You realize that while you cannot control what happens outside, you can always control how you respond to it. And that is where your real power lies. This does not mean you become emotionless or that nothing affects you. It means you become aware of your reactions. You stop reacting automatically and you start choosing your response consciously. For example, when someone disrespects you, instead of immediately reacting with anger, you pause. You observe what you are feeling without letting it control you. You remind yourself that their behavior reflects them, not you. And in that moment, you protect your peace. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to control things they cannot control. They try to control how others think, how others act, how situations unfold. But this only leads to frustration and exhaustion, because no matter how much you try, you cannot control everything. Buddhism teaches acceptance of what is outside your control, not as a form of weakness, but as a way of conserving your energy for what actually matters. When you stop trying to control everything, you free yourself from unnecessary stress. At the same time, you become more disciplined in what you can control: your thoughts, your actions, your focus, your attitude. This is where real change happens. When you shift your attention from external control to internal control, you begin to feel more stable. You are no longer reacting to life, you are responding to it with awareness. And that awareness creates a sense of calm that is not easily shaken. Another important aspect of inner peace is letting go of the need for validation. Many people doubt themselves because they are constantly seeking approval from others. They want to be liked, accepted, and appreciated, and when they don't get that validation, they start questioning themselves. But the truth is, no matter what you do, you cannot control how others see you. Everyone has their own perspective, their own biases, their own expectations. If you base your self-worth on their opinions, you will always feel unstable. When you take responsibility for your peace, you stop relying on others to feel good about yourself. You begin to validate yourself. You recognize your efforts, your progress, your growth. You understand that your worth is not determined by someone else's opinion, and this creates a deep sense of confidence that is not dependent on external approval. Inner peace also requires discipline. It is not something you achieve once and then keep forever. It is something you practice daily. Every day, you will face situations that test your patience, your emotions, your mindset, and in those moments, you have a choice. You can react and lose your peace, or you can stay aware and protect it. This choice may seem small, but over time, it shapes your entire life. When you consistently choose awareness over reaction, something powerful happens. Your mind becomes quieter. You stop overthinking every situation. You stop getting affected by small things. You become more focused, more stable, and more in control of yourself. And this control is not forced, it is natural, because you are no longer fighting with reality, you are working with it. It is also important to understand that protecting your peace sometimes means creating boundaries. Not every situation deserves your energy. Not every person deserves your attention. When you keep engaging with negativity, drama, or toxic behavior, you drain yourself. But when you learn to step back, to say no, to distance yourself from what disturbs you, you protect your inner state. This is not selfish, it is necessary. When life gets hard, your peace will be tested the most. This is when doubt, fear, and frustration try to take over. But this is also when your awareness matters the most. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask yourself, "How can I respond to this without losing my peace?" This question shifts your focus from the problem to your power. The truth is, you cannot control everything that happens in your life. There will always be uncertainty, challenges, and unexpected situations. But you can control how much those things affect you. You can decide whether you let them disturb your mind or not. And that decision is what determines your experience of life. When you fully accept that your inner peace is your responsibility, you stop blaming others for how you feel. You stop waiting for situations to change before you feel better. You take ownership of your emotions, your thoughts, and your reactions. And that ownership gives you freedom. So stop giving your peace away so easily. Stop letting small things control your emotions. Stop depending on others to feel okay. Bring your attention back to yourself. Strengthen your awareness. Choose your responses carefully. Because the more you take responsibility for your inner world, the less power the outside world has over you. And when you reach that point, something incredible happens. You become calm in situations that used to disturb you. You stay focused when others lose control. You remain grounded even when life becomes uncertain. Not because life is perfect, but because you have mastered something far more important, yourself. 11. Detachment is not losing it, is choosing your peace over temporary emotions. One of the most misunderstood ideas in Buddhism is detachment. Most people hear the word and immediately think it means becoming cold, distant, or not caring about anything. They believe detachment means losing connection, losing love, or disconnecting from life. But the truth is completely different. Detachment is not about losing. It is about choosing your peace over the things that disturb it. It is about learning how to stay emotionally balanced without being controlled by every situation, every person, or every feeling that passes through your life. The reason you struggle with doubt, pain, and emotional instability is often because you are too attached. You become attached to people, to expectations, to outcomes, to how things should be. And when reality does not match those attachments, you suffer. Not because life is unfair, but because your mind refuses to accept what is. You hold on to what is no longer there. You chase what is not meant for you, and you resist what is already happening. This creates a constant inner tension, a silent struggle between what is real and what you wish was real. Think about how often your peace is disturbed by things that are temporary, someone's opinion, someone's behavior, a moment of rejection, a delay, a mistake. These are all temporary events, but your attachment makes them feel permanent. You replay them in your mind, you give them meaning, and you allow them to control your emotional state. This is why you suffer more than necessary. It is not the event itself, it is your attachment to it that creates the pain. Buddhism teaches that everything in life is impermanent. People change, situations change, feelings change. Nothing stays the same forever. But instead of accepting this truth, You try to hold on to things as if they are supposed to last forever. You expect people to always treat you the same. You expect situations to always go your way, and when they don't, you feel hurt and disappointed. But the problem is not change. The problem is your resistance to it. Detachment means understanding this deeply and adjusting your mindset. It means caring without clinging. It means loving without losing yourself. It means being involved in life without being controlled by it. You can still have goals, relationships, and emotions, but you don't allow them to define your inner state. You enjoy what is present, but you are not destroyed when it changes or leaves. This is especially important when life gets hard. When things go wrong, your attachment makes it feel worse than it actually is. You attach your identity to your success, so when you fail, you feel like you are not enough. You attach your happiness to people, so when they leave or change, you feel empty. You attach your expectations to outcomes, so when things don't go as planned, you feel lost. But when you practice detachment, you begin to separate yourself from these external things. You realize that your worth is not dependent on success, your peace is not dependent on people, and your happiness is not dependent on outcomes. One of the biggest benefits of detachment is emotional freedom. When you are detached, you are not constantly reacting to everything. You don't get easily triggered by small things. You don't overthink every situation. You don't lose your peace over things that are out of your control. Instead, you remain calm, aware, and grounded. You still feel emotions, but you are not overwhelmed by them. You experience them, understand them, and let them pass without holding on to them. Detachment also protects you from unnecessary suffering in relationships. When you are attached, you often expect people to behave in a certain way. You want them to meet your emotional needs, to understand you, to always be there. And when they don't, you feel hurt. But when you are detached, you accept people as they are. You stop trying to control them or change them. You appreciate what they bring into your life, but you don't depend on them for your inner stability. This creates healthier, more balanced relationships, because you are no longer placing unrealistic expectations on others. Another important aspect of detachment is letting go of the need to control outcomes. You can put in effort, you can work hard, you can do your best, but you cannot control everything. When you are attached to a specific result, you create anxiety. You constantly worry about whether things will go your way. But when you are detached, you focus on your actions, not the outcome. You do your best and accept whatever result comes. This reduces stress and allows you to stay more present and focused. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you care wisely. You invest your energy in what truly matters, and you let go of what does not. You stop wasting your time and emotions on things that disturb your peace without adding value to your life. You become more selective with your attention, more disciplined with your reactions, and more aware of where your energy goes. This also changes how you deal with failure. When you are attached, failure feels personal. It feels like a reflection of your worth. But when you are detached, failure becomes feedback. It becomes something you learn from, not something that defines you. You are able to move forward more quickly because you are not stuck in self-judgment or regret. Detachment is also the key to reducing self-doubt. When you are attached to perfection, to expectations, to comparison, you constantly feel like you are not enough. But when you let go of those attachments, you begin to accept yourself as you are. You stop measuring your worth based on external standards. You focus on your own growth, your own progress, your own path. And that creates a stable sense of confidence that is not easily shaken. It is important to understand that detachment is a practice. It does not happen instantly. Your mind is used to holding on, reacting, and attaching meaning to everything. But with awareness, you can start changing this pattern. The next time something disturbs your peace, pause and ask yourself, why am I so attached to this? Is this worth my energy? Will this matter in the long run? These questions help you step back and see the situation more clearly. As you practice detachment, you begin to feel lighter. You stop carrying unnecessary emotional weight. You stop overthinking every small thing. You stop chasing things that are not meant for you. And in that space, you find a deeper sense of peace and clarity. When life gets hard, detachment becomes your strength. Instead of being pulled in every direction by your emotions, you remain centered. You handle challenges with more calmness, more awareness, and more control. You understand that everything is temporary, and that understanding gives you the ability to move through life without being overwhelmed by it. So stop thinking of detachment as losing something. You are not losing, you are gaining freedom. You are gaining control over your mind, your emotions, and your peace. You are choosing not to let temporary situations define your inner state. And that choice is one of the most powerful things you can make. Because in the end, life will always change. People will come and go. Situations will rise and fall. Emotions will appear and disappear. But if you can remain steady within yourself, if you can stay detached from what disturbs you, you will carry a kind of peace that nothing outside of you can take away. 12. Master your mind, or it will master you. There is a truth so simple, yet so powerful, that most people spend their entire lives ignoring it. Your mind can either be your greatest ally or your greatest enemy, and the difference depends on whether you control it or it controls you. Every moment of doubt, every wave of fear, every cycle of overthinking begins in the same place, your mind. And if you are not aware of how it works, you will spend your life reacting to it, believing everything it says, and suffering because of it. When life gets hard, your mind does not stay neutral. It immediately starts creating stories. It predicts failure. It remembers past mistakes. It imagines worst-case scenarios, and it tries to protect you by keeping you in your comfort zone. But instead of protecting you, it often limits you. It tells you to stop, to play safe, to avoid risk, to doubt your abilities. And the more you listen to this voice without questioning it, the more control it gains over you. Buddhism teaches that the mind is not something you are supposed to blindly follow. It is something you are supposed to observe, understand, and train. Just because a thought appears in your mind does not mean it is true, helpful, or even relevant to your current situation. But most people never question their thoughts. They assume that if they think something, it must be real. This is why doubt feels so powerful, because it is not just a thought anymore. It becomes a belief. Think about how often your mind jumps from one thought to another without any control. One moment you are calm, the next moment you are worrying about the future, then you are thinking about the past, then you are comparing yourself to others. It moves constantly, rarely staying still, and, if you are not aware of this movement, you get carried away by it. Your emotions follow your thoughts, your actions follow your emotions, and before you realize it, your entire life is being directed by an uncontrolled mind. Mastering your mind does not mean stopping thoughts completely. That is not realistic. It means learning how to respond to your thoughts instead of reacting to them. It means creating awareness. When a negative thought appears, instead of immediately believing it, you step back and observe it. You ask yourself, is this thought helping me or hurting me? Is this actually true, or is it just fear? This simple act of questioning creates distance between you and your thoughts, and in that distance, you gain control. One of the most important skills you can develop is the ability to stay present. Your mind loves to live in the past and the future. It replays old mistakes and imagines future problems. But the present moment is where your power exists. When you bring your attention back to what you are doing right now, you reduce unnecessary thinking. You stop feeding your mind with endless distractions and worries. And over time, this practice makes your mind calmer and more focused. Another key aspect of mastering your mind is discipline. Your mind will not naturally choose what is best for you. It will choose what is easy, what is comfortable, what feels good in the moment. But what feels good in the moment is not always what leads to growth. This is why you need discipline, not just in your actions, but in your thinking. You need to guide your mind, not let it guide you. When it tells you to give up, you keep going. When it tells you to doubt yourself, you remind yourself of your progress. When it tries to distract you, you bring your focus back. This discipline is not about forcing yourself aggressively, it is about consistent awareness. It is about noticing when your mind is drifting into negativity and gently bringing it back. It is about training your attention, just like you would train a muscle. At first, it feels difficult. Your mind resists. It wants to go back to old patterns. But with practice, it becomes easier. You start to notice your thoughts more quickly, and you become less affected by them. Mastering your mind also means controlling what you feed it. Your thoughts are influenced by what you consume, what you watch, what you listen to, what you focus on. If you constantly expose yourself to negativity, comparison, and distraction, your mind will reflect that. But if you feed it with positive, meaningful, and focused input, your thinking begins to change. You become more intentional with your attention, and that creates a healthier mental environment. Another important part of this mastery is understanding that you are not your thoughts. This is a core teaching in Buddhism. Your thoughts are just events happening in your mind. They are not your identity. When you stop identifying with every thought, you stop taking everything personally. You stop labeling yourself based on temporary thinking patterns. You realize that you are the observer of your mind, not the content of it. And this realization gives you freedom. When you master your mind, your emotional state becomes more stable. You are not constantly reacting to every situation. You do not get easily overwhelmed by small problems. You handle challenges with more clarity and calmness. This does not mean you never feel negative emotions. It means those emotions do not control you. You experience them, but you are not defined by them. This also changes how you approach life. Instead of being driven by fear, you are driven by awareness. Instead of being controlled by doubt, you act with confidence. Not because you are always sure of the outcome, but because you trust yourself to handle whatever happens. You stop waiting for perfect conditions, and you start taking action even when things are uncertain. When life gets hard, your mind will try to convince you to give up. It will tell you that you are not strong enough, that you cannot handle it, that it is too much. But if you have trained your mind, you will not believe these thoughts automatically. You will recognize them as fear, not truth. And instead of stopping, you will keep moving forward. This is the difference between someone who is controlled by their mind and someone who has mastered it. One reacts, the other responds. One doubts, the other observes. One gives up, the other continues. And over time, these small differences create completely different lives. Mastering your mind is not something you achieve in one day. It is a lifelong practice. There will be moments when you lose control, when you get caught up in your thoughts, when doubt feels overwhelming. But each time you bring yourself back to awareness, you become stronger. Each time you choose not to believe a negative thought, you weaken its power. Each time you stay present, you build control. So, stop letting your mind run your life without awareness. Stop believing every thought that appears. Start observing, questioning, and guiding your thinking. Because the truth is, your mind is a powerful tool, but only if you learn how to use it. If you don't master your mind, it will master you. It will control your emotions, your decisions, and your direction in life. But if you take control, if you train it with awareness and discipline, it becomes your greatest strength. It becomes the force that pushes you forward instead of holding you back. And once you reach that point, something incredible happens. You are no longer afraid of your thoughts. You are no longer controlled by doubt. You move through life with clarity, focus, and inner strength, not because life is easy, but because your mind is finally working with you, not against you. 13. Consistency over intensity. Small steps create unstoppable change. One of the biggest reasons you start doubting yourself when life gets hard is because you expect transformation to happen quickly. You want immediate results, fast progress, and clear proof that what you are doing is working. And when you don't see that progress right away, your mind begins to question everything. It tells you that your efforts are not enough, that you are not improving, that maybe you are not meant for this. But Buddhism teaches something very different. Real change does not come from intensity, it comes from consistency. Most people approach growth with bursts of motivation. They feel inspired, they take action, they push themselves hard for a few days, maybe even a few weeks. But when that motivation fades, they stop. And because they stop, they never give their efforts enough time to create real results. This creates a cycle of starting and stopping, trying and quitting, hoping and doubting. And over time, this pattern weakens their confidence. They begin to believe that they cannot stay consistent, that they cannot follow through, that they are not disciplined enough. But the truth is not that you are incapable. The truth is that you have been approaching growth the wrong way. You have been relying on intensity instead of consistency. You have been trying to do everything at once instead of focusing on small, steady progress. And because of that, you exhaust yourself before you see results. Think about how real growth works in nature. A tree does not grow overnight. It does not suddenly become strong and tall in a few days. It grows slowly, consistently, day by day, root by root. Most of its growth happens underground, invisible to the eye, and only after time and patience does it become something visible and strong. Your growth works the same way. The habits you build, the mindset you develop, the discipline you practice, all of it is happening beneath the surface before it becomes visible in your life. Buddhism emphasizes patience and steady effort. It teaches that every small action matters. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, every time you focus instead of distracting yourself, every time you move forward, even when you don't feel like it, you are building something powerful. These small actions may not feel significant in the moment, but over time, they create a compound effect. They build momentum, and that momentum becomes unstoppable. The problem is, your mind often ignores small progress. It wants big results. It wants something dramatic to prove that you are moving forward. But when you focus only on big results, you miss the importance of small steps. You underestimate how powerful consistency can be. You think that because your progress is slow, it is not working. But slow progress is still progress, and in many cases, it is the most sustainable form of growth. Consistency builds trust in yourself. Every time you show up, even when you don't feel motivated, you prove to yourself that you can rely on your actions, not just your emotions. This builds confidence, not the kind that comes from success, but the kind that comes from discipline. You begin to trust that no matter how you feel, you will continue moving forward. And that trust removes doubt. Another important thing to understand is that consistency reduces pressure. When you rely on intensity, you feel like you have to do everything perfectly. You feel like you need to push yourself to the limit every time. And this creates stress, burnout, and eventually failure to maintain that level of effort. But when you focus on consistency, you remove that pressure. You understand that it is okay to take small steps as long as you keep moving. You create a rhythm that is sustainable, and that rhythm allows you to stay on track for the long term. This also changes how you see setbacks. When you are focused on intensity, one mistake feels like failure. Missing one day feels like everything is ruined. But when you are focused on consistency, you understand that setbacks are part of the process. You do not expect perfection, you expect effort. If you miss a day, you simply continue the next day. You do not let small breaks turn into long stops. This mindset keeps you moving forward, even when things are not perfect. Consistency also trains your mind to become stronger. Every time you repeat a positive action, you reinforce that behavior. You make it easier for your mind to choose that action again. Over time, what once felt difficult becomes natural. Discipline becomes a habit, not a struggle. And when discipline becomes automatic, you no longer rely on motivation to act. You act because it is part of who you are. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is focusing on the process instead of the outcome. Instead of constantly thinking about where you want to be, focus on what you need to do today. What small step can you take right now? What action moves you forward, even if it is simple? When you shift your attention to the process, you reduce anxiety about the future and increase your control over the present. Buddhism teaches that the present moment is all you truly have. The future is uncertain and the past is gone. When you bring your focus to what you can do right now, you become more effective. You stop overthinking and start doing. And when you repeat this every day, your actions begin to add up. Another important aspect of consistency is patience. Real change takes time. You may not see results immediately, and that can be frustrating. But if you stay consistent, results are inevitable. It is not a matter of if, but when. The problem is, most people quit before they reach that point. They give up because they do not see immediate progress. But if they had continued just a little longer, they would have seen the results they were looking for. Consistency also helps you detach from emotional ups and downs. When you rely on how you feel, your actions become inconsistent. Some days you feel motivated, other days you don't. But when you focus on consistency, you act regardless of your emotions. You understand that feelings come and go, but your actions define your progress. This creates stability in your life. You are no longer controlled by temporary emotions. As you continue to stay consistent, something powerful begins to happen. Your doubt starts to fade, not because you suddenly feel confident, but because you have evidence of your effort. You have proof that you are showing up, that you are trying, that you are moving forward, and this proof builds belief. You begin to trust that if you keep going, you will eventually get where you want to be. This is how unstoppable change is created. Not through one big moment, but through many small moments repeated over time. Each step may seem insignificant, but together they create something powerful. They create momentum, and once you have momentum, it becomes easier to keep going than to stop. When life gets hard, consistency becomes even more important. This is when most people give up. This is when doubt becomes stronger. But if you can stay consistent in difficult times, you build real strength. You prove to yourself that you are not dependent on easy conditions. You show yourself that you can keep going even when things are uncertain. And that is what separates people who grow from those who stay stuck. So, stop waiting for motivation. Stop expecting big results overnight. Focus on small, consistent actions. Show up every day, even if it is just a little. Because in the end, it is not the intensity of your effort that matters. It is the consistency of it. And if you stay consistent long enough, you will look back one day and realize something powerful. The person you once doubted has become the person you always wanted to be. not because of one big change, but because of many small steps that you refuse to stop taking. 14. Silence. The noise. Not everything deserves your attention. One of the most overlooked reasons you keep doubting yourself, especially when life gets hard, is because your mind is constantly filled with noise. Not just external noise like people, opinions, social media, and distractions, but internal noise, endless thoughts, comparisons, fears, and overthinking that never seems to stop. And when your mind is full of noise, clarity disappears. When clarity disappears, doubt takes over. Think about how your day usually goes. From the moment you wake up, your attention is pulled in different directions. Notifications, messages, opinions, expectations, responsibilities, everything competing for your focus. And, without realizing it, your mind becomes crowded. You don't give yourself time to think clearly, to reflect, or to understand what you truly want. Instead, you react to everything around you. And when you are always reacting, you lose control over your inner state. Buddhism teaches that a restless mind is the root of suffering, not because thoughts are bad, but because uncontrolled thoughts create confusion. When your mind is constantly active, jumping from one idea to another, you begin to lose direction. You start questioning everything. You compare yourself more. You overanalyze small situations. And slowly, doubt becomes a constant presence in your life. The truth is, not everything deserves your attention. But your mind has been trained to react to everything as if it matters. Every opinion feels important. Every comment feels personal. Every distraction feels necessary. And because of that, your energy is scattered. Instead of focusing on what truly matters, you are constantly pulled into things that add no value to your life. Silencing the noise does not mean avoiding the world or disconnecting completely. It means becoming intentional with your attention. It means choosing what you allow into your mind and what you ignore. Because whatever you give your attention to grows stronger. If you constantly focus on negativity, comparison, and distractions, your mind will reflect that. But if you focus on clarity, growth, and purpose, your thinking begins to change. One of the biggest sources of noise in your life is comparison. You look at others and start questioning yourself. You see their progress, their success, their confidence, and you begin to feel like you are not enough. But what you don't realize is that this comparison is not helping you grow, it is weakening your focus. Instead of working on your own path, you are distracted by someone else's journey, and that distraction creates doubt. When you silence this noise, something powerful happens. You bring your focus back to yourself. You stop measuring your worth based on others. You start paying attention to your own progress, your own growth, your own direction. And this creates a sense of clarity that removes unnecessary pressure from your mind. Another form of noise is overthinking. Your mind keeps replaying situations, analyzing every detail, imagining different outcomes, creating problems that don't even exist yet. This constant thinking drains your energy and makes simple situations feel overwhelming. But most of this thinking is not productive. It is repetitive. It does not lead to solutions. It leads to confusion. Buddhism teaches the practice of awareness. Instead of getting lost in your thoughts, you observe them. You notice when your mind starts overthinking, and instead of following it, you bring your attention back to the present moment. This simple act of awareness reduces mental noise. It creates space in your mind. And in that space, clarity begins to return. Silence is not just the absence of sound. It is the absence of unnecessary thinking. It is the state where your mind is calm, focused, and clear. And when your mind is clear, you make better decisions. You see situations more accurately. You respond instead of reacting. Another important aspect of silencing the noise is learning to ignore what does not matter. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every situation requires your reaction. Not every thought needs to be followed. The more you learn to let things pass without engaging, the more control you gain over your mind. Think about how much energy you waste on things that have no long-term impact. Small arguments, negative comments, unnecessary distractions. In the moment, they feel important, but in reality, they add nothing to your life. When you start filtering what you give your attention to, you protect your energy. You focus only on what truly matters. This also applies to your environment. The people you surround yourself with, the content you consume, the conversations you engage in, all of these influence your mind. If you are constantly exposed to negativity, drama, or distraction, your mind will reflect that. But if you create an environment that supports your growth, your thinking becomes more focused and positive. Silencing the noise also means creating moments of stillness in your day, time where you are not distracted, not consuming, not reacting, just being present. This could be through meditation, reflection, or simply sitting quietly. These moments allow your mind to reset. They help you reconnect with yourself, and over time, they strengthen your ability to stay calm even in chaotic situations. When you reduce noise, you increase awareness. You become more conscious of your thoughts, your actions, and your choices. You stop operating on autopilot. You start living with intention, and this awareness is what gives you control over your life. As your mind becomes quieter, doubt begins to fade. Not because life becomes easier, but because you are no longer feeding your mind with unnecessary distractions and negative input. You create a stable inner environment where your thoughts are not constantly pulling you in different directions. When life gets hard, this clarity becomes your strength. Instead of reacting impulsively, you pause. Instead of overthinking, you observe. Instead of doubting yourself, you focus on what you can do. This calm, focused mindset allows you to handle challenges more effectively. Silencing the noise also helps you reconnect with your intuition. When your mind is quiet, you can hear your inner voice more clearly. You can sense what feels right for you, what direction you should take, what decisions align with your values. But when your mind is full of noise, this inner guidance gets lost. You become dependent on external opinions instead of trusting yourself. The more you practice silencing the noise, the more you realize how much of your stress was unnecessary. You see how much of your doubt was created by distractions, comparison, and overthinking. And as you let go of these patterns, you begin to feel lighter, calmer, and more in control. This is not about achieving a perfectly quiet mind all the time. That is not realistic. Thoughts will always come and go. The goal is not to eliminate them, but to not be controlled by them. To choose what you focus on, to decide what matters and what does not. So stop giving your attention to everything. Stop reacting to every thought, every opinion, every distraction. Learn to let things pass. Protect your focus. Create space in your mind. Because in that space, you will find something powerful. You will find clarity. You will find calmness. You will find control. And most importantly, you will find yourself without the noise, without the doubt, without the confusion. And once you experience that, you will understand. Peace was never something you needed to find outside. It was something you needed to protect inside. 15. Become the observer. Awareness is the beginning of freedom. There is a moment, quiet and almost invisible, where everything begins to change, not outside you, but within you. It is the moment you stop being completely lost in your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions, and you begin to notice them instead. This is what Buddhism calls awareness, and it is one of the most powerful shifts you can experience. Because the truth is, most of your suffering does not come from what happens to you. It comes from being unconsciously controlled by your own mind. From the time you wake up to the moment you sleep, your mind is constantly active. Thoughts are appearing, emotions are rising, reactions are happening. But most of the time, you are not aware of this process. You simply follow it. A thought appears, and you believe it. An emotion arises, and you react to it. A situation happens, and you respond automatically. There is no pause, no space, no awareness. And because of this, your life is being driven by unconscious patterns instead of conscious choice. Becoming the observer means stepping out of that automatic mode. It means recognizing that you are not your thoughts. You are the one who is aware of those thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the one who experiences them. This may sound simple, but it is a profound realization. Because the moment you see that you are separate from your thoughts, they lose their control over you. Think about how often your mind creates unnecessary suffering. You replay conversations in your head. You imagine worst-case scenarios. You compare yourself to others. You criticize yourself for mistakes. And all of this happens automatically. You don't choose these thoughts. They simply appear. But the problem is, you treat them as truth. You identify with them. You let them define how you feel and how you act. But what if you could observe these thoughts instead of believing them? What if, when a negative thought appears, you simply notice it and say, "This is just a thought," instead of reacting to it? In that moment, something shifts. You create distance between you and your mind, and in that distance, you gain freedom. Buddhism teaches that awareness is the key to ending unnecessary suffering, not by changing the world, but by changing your relationship with your mind. When you are aware, you see things as they are, not as your mind interprets them. You stop adding extra meaning, extra judgment, extra emotion to every situation. You experience life more directly, more clearly. Becoming the observer also changes how you deal with emotions. Instead of being overwhelmed by them, you begin to watch them. You notice when anger arises, when fear appears, when sadness comes. But instead of reacting immediately, you stay present with the feeling. You allow it to exist without trying to control it or suppress it. And something interesting happens. The emotion begins to pass on its own. This is because emotions, like thoughts, are temporary. They rise, they peak, and they fade. But when you react to them, when you feed them with more thinking, you keep them alive longer than necessary. Awareness breaks this cycle. It allows emotions to move through you without getting stuck. Another powerful effect of awareness is that it reveals your patterns. You begin to notice how your mind reacts in certain situations. You see how you tend to overthink, how you doubt yourself, how you seek validation, how you get attached. And once you see these patterns clearly, you are no longer controlled by them, because you cannot change what you are not aware of. Awareness is the first step to transformation. When life gets hard, awareness becomes your anchor. Instead of being pulled in every direction by your thoughts and emotions, you stay grounded. You observe what is happening inside you without being consumed by it. This gives you a sense of stability, even in difficult moments. You are no longer reacting blindly, you are responding with clarity. Becoming the observer also helps you make better decisions. When you are caught up in your thoughts, your decisions are often driven by fear, impulse, or emotion. But when you step back and observe, you create space to think clearly. You are able to see the situation from a different perspective. You are less likely to make decisions you will regret later. This practice also strengthens your sense of self. When you stop identifying with every thought and emotion, you begin to discover something deeper within you, a part of you that is calm, steady, and unaffected by the constant movement of the mind. This is your true nature, the observer, the awareness behind everything. And the more you connect with this, the more stable you become. It is important to understand that becoming the observer does not mean you stop thinking or feeling. That is not the goal. The goal is to not be controlled by what you think and feel, to have thoughts without being lost in them, to experience emotions without being overwhelmed by them. This creates a sense of balance that most people never experience. Practicing awareness can be simple. It starts with small moments. Noticing your breath, observing your thoughts without judgment, paying attention to how you feel without reacting immediately, bringing your focus back to the present moment when your mind drifts. These small practices may seem insignificant, but over time, they create a powerful shift in your awareness. As you continue this practice, you will notice that your mind becomes quieter, not completely silent, but less chaotic. You will notice that you react less impulsively. You will notice that you feel more in control of your inner state. And most importantly, you will notice that your doubt begins to fade, because doubt thrives in unconscious thinking. It grows when you believe every negative thought without questioning it. But when you observe those thoughts, when you see them clearly, they lose their power. You begin to realize that doubt is not who you are. It is just something your mind produces. This realization brings freedom, not the kind of freedom that comes from external success, but the kind that comes from within. The freedom to not be controlled by your thoughts. The freedom to choose how you respond. The freedom to live with more clarity, more calmness, and more awareness. When you become the observer, life does not necessarily become easier, but your experience of it changes completely. Challenges are still there, but they do not overwhelm you. Difficult emotions still arise, but they do not control you. Uncertainty still exists, but it does not create the same level of fear. You move through life with a different mindset, one that is more aware, more present, and more stable. You stop fighting your mind, and you start understanding it. And in that understanding, you find peace. So the next time your mind starts racing, your thoughts become overwhelming, or doubt begins to rise, pause for a moment, step back, observe. Notice what is happening without immediately reacting, because in that simple act of awareness, you are doing something powerful. You are taking your power back. You are breaking the cycle of unconscious thinking. You are choosing clarity over confusion. And the more you practice this, the more you realize freedom was never about controlling everything outside of you. It was always about understanding and mastering what is happening within you. 17. Surrender the illusion of control. Peace begins where resistance ends. One of the deepest reasons you feel stress, doubt, and inner conflict when life gets hard is because you are trying to control things that were never meant to be controlled. You want life to go exactly the way you planned. You want people to behave the way you expect. You want outcomes to match your desires. And when reality does not follow your script, your mind reacts with frustration, fear, and doubt. But Buddhism teaches something that can completely transform the way you experience life. The more you try to control everything, the more you suffer. And the moment you let go of that illusion, peace begins. Control feels safe. It gives you a sense of certainty. It makes you feel like you are in charge of your life. But the truth is, most of what happens around you is not in your control. You cannot control how others think, how they feel, what they do, or how they respond to you. You cannot control unexpected events, delays, or changes. You cannot control every outcome, no matter how much effort you put in. And when you keep trying to control these things, you create a constant battle between your expectations and reality. That battle is what creates stress. Think about how often you feel disturbed when things don't go your way. A plan changes, someone disappoints you, something takes longer than expected, and suddenly your mind starts reacting. You feel frustrated, anxious, or even angry. But what is really happening in that moment? It is not just the situation that is bothering you, it is your resistance to it. You are saying, "This should not be happening," and that resistance creates tension inside you. Buddhism teaches that suffering comes from attachment and resistance. You are attached to a certain outcome, and you resist anything that does not match it. But life is constantly changing, and when you try to hold it in a fixed way, you create unnecessary pain. The moment you understand that you cannot control everything, you begin to relax your grip. You stop fighting reality, and that is where peace begins. Surrendering does not mean giving up or becoming passive. It means accepting what is outside your control while still taking responsibility for what is within your control. You still take action, you still make effort, you still move forward. But you stop trying to force results. You stop trying to control every detail. You focus on what you can do, and you let go of what you cannot. This shift changes everything. Instead of constantly worrying about outcomes, you focus on your actions. Instead of being frustrated by things you cannot change, you accept them and adapt. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by uncertainty, you learn to move through it with trust. This does not make life perfect, but it makes your experience of life much lighter. One of the biggest illusions of control is the need to control how others see you. You want to be liked, respected, understood. You want people to think positively about you. And when they don't, you feel hurt or insecure. But the truth is, you cannot control someone else's perception. Everyone sees the world through their own lens, shaped by their experiences, beliefs, and emotions. No matter what you do, some people will misunderstand you, judge you, or disagree with you. When you try to control this, you lose yourself. You start changing who you are to fit others' expectations. You become anxious about how you are perceived. You begin to doubt yourself because you are constantly seeking approval. But when you surrender this need for control, you free yourself. You allow yourself to be authentic. You stop trying to manage other people's opinions, and you focus on being true to yourself. Another area where the illusion of control creates suffering is in relationships. You try to control how someone feels about you, how they treat you, how they behave. But people are not objects you can control. They have their own thoughts, emotions, and choices. When you try to control them, you create tension and disappointment. But when you accept them as they are, you create space for healthier, more natural connections. Surrendering also helps you deal with uncertainty. Life is unpredictable. No matter how much you plan, there will always be unknowns. And if you need certainty to feel okay, you will always feel anxious. But when you accept uncertainty as part of life, you become more flexible. You stop fearing the unknown, and you start navigating it with curiosity and trust. Trust is a key part of surrender. Trust does not mean believing that everything will go exactly as you want. It means believing that you can handle whatever happens. It means knowing that even if things don't go as planned, you will find a way forward. This kind of trust removes fear. It gives you confidence, not because life is certain, but because you are capable. When you stop trying to control everything, you also free up your mental energy. Instead of constantly worrying, overthinking, and stressing about outcomes, you have more space in your mind. This allows you to think more clearly, make better decisions, and stay more present. You become more focused on what actually matters, rather than being distracted by things you cannot change. Surrendering the illusion of control also reduces self-doubt. When you believe you have to control everything, any failure feels like a personal fault. You think you should have done something differently, controlled something better, predicted something more accurately. But when you accept that not everything is in your control, you stop blaming yourself for things that were never yours to control. This creates a healthier, more balanced mindset. It is important to understand that letting go of control is not a one-time decision. It is a practice. Your mind is used to trying to control things. It will keep going back to old patterns. But each time you notice this, you have a choice. You can continue trying to control everything, or you can step back and let go. Over time, this becomes easier. You start to naturally respond with more acceptance and less resistance. When life gets hard, surrender becomes even more important. This is when your mind wants to control things the most. It wants answers, solutions, certainty. But often, those things are not immediately available. In these moments, surrender allows you to stay calm. It allows you to move forward without being overwhelmed by the need to control everything. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you care without clinging. You act without forcing. You move forward without resisting what you cannot change. This creates a sense of balance that is both strong and peaceful. As you continue to practice surrender, you begin to notice a shift in your life. You feel less stressed, less anxious, less reactive. You handle challenges with more calmness. You adapt more easily to change. You become more resilient, not because life is easier, but because you are no longer fighting it at every step. And in this state, something powerful happens. You begin to experience life more fully. You are more present. You are more aware. You are not constantly stuck in your head, trying to control everything. You are actually living, experiencing, and growing. So stop trying to control everything. Stop resisting what you cannot change. Let go of the illusion that you need to have everything figured out. Focus on what you can control, your actions, your mindset, your response. And trust that the rest will unfold as it needs to. Because in the end, peace does not come from controlling life. It comes from accepting it. And the moment you stop fighting what is, you finally allow yourself to experience what could be. 18. Discipline. Your energy, where your focus goes, your life follows. One of the most overlooked truths about self-doubt, struggle, and lack of progress is not that you are incapable, but that your energy is scattered. You are trying to move forward, but your attention is divided. Your focus is pulled in different directions. Your thoughts are constantly shifting, and your energy is being spent on things that do not truly matter. And when your energy is scattered, your results become weak. Your mind becomes confused, and doubt begins to take over. Buddhism teaches that your attention is one of the most powerful forces in your life. Whatever you focus on grows stronger. Whatever you give your energy to begins to shape your reality. If your attention is constantly on fear, comparison, distraction, and negativity, your life will start reflecting that. But if your attention is directed toward growth, clarity, discipline, and purpose, your life begins to align with that focus. Think about how your day usually flows. You start with intention. Maybe you want to improve, stay focused, or work towards something meaningful. But slowly, your energy begins to leak. A notification appears. You check your phone. A thought comes up. You follow it. You jump from one task to another, from one idea to another, and by the end of the day, you feel mentally exhausted, but not truly productive. This is not because you did nothing, but because your energy was not directed with intention. The truth is, your mind is not naturally disciplined. It seeks stimulation, comfort, and distraction. It wants to move quickly from one thing to another, and if you do not guide it, it will waste your energy on things that do not move your life forward. This is why discipline is not just about actions, it is about energy. It is about deciding where your attention goes and where it does not. When you lack control over your energy, you begin to feel stuck. You may have goals, you may have plans, but without focused energy, those plans remain ideas. And this creates frustration. You start questioning yourself. You begin to feel like you are not doing enough, not progressing fast enough, not capable enough. But the issue is not your ability, it is your direction. Disciplining your energy means becoming intentional with your focus. It means asking yourself, is this worth my attention? Is this helping me grow or holding me back? Every time you choose to focus on something meaningful instead of something distracting, you strengthen your discipline, and over time, this creates a powerful shift in your life. One of the biggest drains on your energy is distraction. In today's world, distraction is everywhere. Social media, constant entertainment, endless information, all designed to capture your attention. And, without awareness, you become a passive consumer of everything around you. You lose control over your focus. You spend hours on things that add no real value, and then you wonder why you feel stuck. Buddhism teaches mindfulness, the practice of being fully present and aware of where your attention is. When you are mindful, you notice when your energy is being pulled away. You catch yourself before you get lost in distractions. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can continue down that path, or you can bring your focus back to what truly matters. Another major drain on your energy is overthinking. Your mind keeps going, analyzing, worrying, imagining. And while it feels like you are doing something, you are not actually moving forward. You are using your energy to create problems instead of solving them. This mental activity exhausts you and leaves you with less energy to take real action. Disciplining your energy means knowing when to stop thinking and start doing. It means recognizing that not every thought needs to be followed. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is take a simple step forward instead of waiting for perfect clarity. Action creates momentum, and momentum reduces doubt. Your emotional energy also plays a huge role. When you constantly engage with negativity, drama, or unnecessary conflict, you drain yourself. You give your energy to things that do not deserve it. And over time, this leaves you feeling tired, frustrated, and unmotivated. But when you learn to protect your energy, to step away from what disturbs you, you create space for growth. This is why boundaries are important. Not everything deserves your time, your attention, or your emotional investment. When you start being selective about where your energy goes, you become more focused, more stable, and more effective. You stop reacting to everything, and you start choosing what matters. Another important aspect of disciplining your energy is consistency. It is not enough to focus intensely for a short period and then lose direction. Real progress comes from steady, repeated effort. When you consistently direct your energy toward your goals, even in small amounts, you create momentum. And once momentum builds, it becomes easier to stay on track. Think about how powerful this is. Instead of trying to do everything at once, you focus on one thing at a time. You give it your full attention. You complete it with awareness. Then you move to the next. This simple approach reduces overwhelm and increases effectiveness. You stop feeling scattered and you start feeling in control. Disciplining your energy also means aligning your actions with your priorities. Many people say they want to grow, to improve, to achieve something meaningful, but their daily actions do not reflect that. Their time is spent on distractions. Their energy is spent on things that do not matter. And this creates a gap between what they want and what they do. When you become aware of this, you can start making changes. You begin to align your actions with your goals. You make small decisions every day that move you forward. And over time, these decisions add up. They create a sense of progress, and that progress builds confidence. Another powerful shift happens when you realize that energy is limited. You only have a certain amount of attention and effort you can give each day. If you waste it on unimportant things, you will have less for what truly matters. But if you protect it, If you use it wisely, you can create meaningful change. This awareness changes how you approach your day. You become more intentional. You start asking yourself, what is the most important thing I can focus on right now? And by focusing on that, you make better use of your energy. When life gets hard, your energy is tested the most. This is when distractions become more tempting, when overthinking becomes stronger, when doubt tries to take over. But this is also when discipline matters the most. If you can stay focused during difficult times, you build real strength. You prove to yourself that you can move forward even when conditions are not perfect. This creates a deep sense of confidence, not the kind that comes from success, but the kind that comes from self-control. You begin to trust yourself more. You know that no matter what happens, you can direct your energy in a way that supports your growth. Over time, this discipline transforms your life. You become more productive, more focused, more clear. You stop wasting time on things that do not matter. You start building something meaningful. And, as you see the results of your focused energy, your doubt begins to fade. Because doubt thrives in confusion and inaction. But when your energy is directed and your actions are consistent, you create clarity. And clarity removes doubt. You begin to see your path more clearly. You begin to trust your direction. So stop letting your energy scatter. Stop giving your attention to everything around you. Start choosing where your focus goes. Protect your energy. Direct it with intention. Because in the end, your life is shaped by where your energy flows. And if you can learn to control that flow, you can create a life that is focused, meaningful, and powerful. 19. Stop escaping. Face your life, and you will finally grow. One of the most honest truths you can face is this. Most of the time, you are not stuck because life is too hard. You are stuck because you keep escaping it. You escape through distractions, through comfort, through overthinking, through avoiding the very things that would actually move your life forward. And the more you escape, the more your problems grow, the more your confidence drops, and the more you begin to doubt yourself. Buddhism teaches that suffering does not only come from pain itself, but from your resistance to it. When something feels uncomfortable, your mind immediately looks for a way out. It wants relief, it wants ease, it wants to avoid anything that feels difficult. So, instead of facing what needs to be done, you delay it, you distract yourself. You tell yourself you will deal with it later, but later never comes, and the problem remains. Think about how often you avoid things that matter. Important decisions, difficult conversations, challenging tasks, personal growth. Instead of facing them directly, you find something easier to do. You scroll, you watch, you think, you plan, but you don't act. And while this gives you temporary comfort, it creates long-term frustration. Because deep down, you know you are not doing what you need to do. And that awareness creates self-doubt. Every time you avoid something important, you send a message to yourself, I can't handle this. And the more you repeat that pattern, the more you begin to believe it. You start seeing yourself as someone who avoids, someone who delays, someone who cannot face difficulty. This is how doubt is built, not in one moment, but through repeated avoidance. But here is the truth most people don't want to hear. Growth only happens when you stop escaping and start facing. The things you are avoiding are often the exact things that will make you stronger. The discomfort you are running from is the same discomfort that builds your confidence when you face it. Buddhism teaches awareness of your actions, not just your thoughts. It teaches that you must see your patterns clearly. When you become aware of how often you escape, you begin to understand why you feel stuck. You see that it is not a lack of ability, but a lack of action. And this realization is powerful because it shows you that change is possible. Facing your life does not mean everything becomes easy. It means you stop running from what is difficult. It means you accept that discomfort is part of growth. Instead of trying to avoid it, you move through it. And in doing so, you build strength. Think about the last time you faced something you were avoiding. Maybe it was a task you kept delaying, a conversation you were afraid of, or a decision you didn't want to make. Before you faced it, your mind probably made it feel much bigger than it actually was. You felt anxious, uncertain, maybe even overwhelmed. But once you took action, you realized something. It was not as bad as you imagined. And more importantly, you felt better afterward. You felt relief, clarity, even confidence. This is the pattern you need to understand. Avoidance increases fear. Action reduces it. The longer you avoid something, the bigger it feels. The moment you face it, it starts to shrink. And each time you repeat this process, you build confidence in your ability to handle life. Another form of escape is overthinking. Instead of taking action, you stay in your mind. You analyze every possibility, every outcome, every detail. You tell yourself you are preparing, but in reality, you are delaying. You are using thinking as a way to avoid doing. And while thinking can be useful, excessive thinking without action keeps you stuck. Buddhism teaches the importance of right action. It is not enough to understand something, you must act on it. Knowledge without action does not create change. It only creates the illusion of progress. Real progress comes from doing, from taking steps, even when they feel uncomfortable. Facing your life also means taking responsibility. It means accepting that where you are right now is the result of your actions and choices, not in a way that creates guilt, but in a way that gives you control. Because if your actions created your current situation, your actions can also change it. This is empowering. It shifts you from being a victim of circumstances to being an active participant in your life. When you stop escaping, you begin to see your life more clearly. You see what needs to change. You see where you need to grow. You stop hiding from reality, and you start working with it. This clarity is uncomfortable at first, but it is necessary for growth. Another important part of this lesson is understanding that comfort can become a trap. When you constantly choose what is easy, you weaken your ability to handle what is hard. You become dependent on comfort, and anything outside of it feels overwhelming. But when you challenge yourself, when you step out of your comfort zone regularly, you expand your capacity. You make difficult things feel normal. Facing your life also builds discipline. Each time you choose to act instead of avoid, you strengthen your discipline. You train yourself to do what needs to be done, not just what feels good in the moment. And over time, this discipline becomes part of who you are. When life gets hard, the temptation to escape becomes stronger. This is when you are most likely to avoid, to distract yourself, to delay. But this is also when facing your life matters the most, because these are the moments that define your growth. If you can face difficulty when it is hardest, you build real strength. This does not mean you have to do everything at once. Start small. Face one thing you have been avoiding. Take one step, then another. Progress does not come from doing everything perfectly. It comes from doing something consistently. As you continue to face your life, something begins to change inside you. You feel more in control. You feel more capable. You begin to trust yourself more. Because you are no longer running away from challenges, you are meeting them directly. This also reduces self-doubt, because doubt often comes from inaction. When you are not moving forward, your mind fills the space with negative thoughts. But when you are taking action, you create evidence. You prove to yourself that you can handle things, and this proof builds confidence. Facing your life also brings a sense of freedom, not because life becomes easier, but because you are no longer controlled by avoidance. You are no longer stuck in patterns that keep you from growing. You are moving forward, even if it is slow, even if it is uncomfortable. And over time, you realize something powerful. The things you once avoided are no longer as intimidating. You have faced them, learned from them, and grown through them. What once felt impossible now feels manageable. So, stop escaping. Stop running from what matters. Stop choosing temporary comfort over long-term growth. Face your life. Face your challenges. Face your fears, because everything you are avoiding is holding your growth on the other side. And the moment you stop running and start facing, you take your power back. And once you take that power back, doubt begins to fade, confidence begins to rise, and your life begins to move forward in a way you never thought possible. 20. Become unshakable. Build a mind that stays strong, no matter what happens. At some point in your life, you begin to realize something deeply important. The goal is not to create a life where nothing ever goes wrong. The goal is to become the kind of person who remains steady even when things do go wrong. Because no matter how much you try to control your life, challenges will come. People will disappoint you, plans will fail, situations will change, and uncertainty will always exist. The real question is not whether life will test you, it will. The real question is, will you break every time it does, or will you become unshakable? Most people live in a reactive state. Their emotions rise and fall based on what happens around them. When things go well, they feel confident. When things go wrong, they feel lost. Their peace is unstable because it depends on external conditions. But Buddhism teaches something far more powerful. True strength is internal. It is the ability to remain calm, clear, and grounded regardless of what is happening outside. Becoming unshakable does not mean you stop feeling emotions. It means your emotions do not control you. It means you feel everything, but you are not overwhelmed by anything. You experience life fully, but you remain centered within yourself. This is not something that happens overnight. It is something you build, step by step, through awareness, discipline, and practice. One of the first steps to becoming unshakable is understanding that your reactions create your reality. Two people can go through the same situation, and one becomes stronger while the other becomes weaker. The difference is not the situation, it is how they respond to it. When you react impulsively, when you let your emotions take over, you lose control. But when you pause, observe, and respond with awareness, you stay in control. This is why mastering your reactions is so important. Every time something happens, you have a choice. You can react immediately, or you can pause and choose your response. That pause may seem small, but it is powerful. It is the space where you decide whether you will be controlled by the situation or remain in control of yourself. Another key aspect of becoming unshakable is emotional discipline. Your emotions are natural, but they are not always accurate. Fear does not always mean danger. Doubt does not always mean you are incapable. Anxiety does not always mean something is wrong. But if you follow every emotion without questioning it, you will constantly feel unstable. Buddhism teaches that emotions are temporary. They rise and fall like waves. When you understand this, you stop treating every emotion as something permanent. You allow it to pass without letting it define your actions. This creates stability. You are no longer controlled by how you feel in the moment. Another important element is mental resilience. Life will challenge you. It will push you beyond your comfort zone, and in those moments, your mind will try to convince you to give up. It will tell you that it is too hard, that you are not strong enough, that you cannot handle it. But resilience is built by continuing despite those thoughts. It is built by showing up even when you don't feel like it. Each time you push through difficulty, you strengthen your mind. You prove to yourself that you can handle more than you thought. And this proof builds confidence, not the kind that comes from easy success, but the kind that comes from overcoming challenges. Becoming unshakable also means detaching from external validation. When your confidence depends on what others think, you become fragile. A single negative comment can disturb you. A lack of approval can make you doubt yourself. But when your confidence comes from within, you become stable. You are not easily affected by opinions because you are not dependent on them. This does not mean you ignore feedback or stop learning from others. It means you do not let others define your worth. You listen, you learn, but you stay grounded in your own understanding of yourself. Another important aspect is controlling your focus. What you focus on shapes your experience. If you focus on problems, your mind will feel overwhelmed. If you focus on solutions, your mind becomes proactive. When life gets hard, your focus determines your state. Do you focus on what is going wrong, or do you focus on what you can do next? Buddhism emphasizes the importance of right focus. It teaches you to direct your attention toward what is meaningful, not what is distracting. When you train your focus, you become less affected by negativity and more aligned with your goals. Consistency also plays a huge role in becoming unshakable. Strength is not built in one moment. It is built through repeated effort. Each day, you choose discipline. Each day, you stay aware. Each day, you move forward. You are building a stronger version of yourself. This is why small actions matter. Every time you control your reaction, every time you stay calm, every time you face something difficult, you are reinforcing your strength. These moments may seem small, but they add up. Over time, they create a mindset that is stable and resilient. Another powerful shift happens when you stop taking everything personally. Not everything that happens is about you. People act based on their own thoughts, emotions, and experiences. When you take everything personally, you give unnecessary power to external situations. But when you understand that not everything is about you, you become less reactive. This creates emotional distance. You are able to see situations more clearly. You do not get caught up in every small issue. You maintain your peace even when others are unstable. Becoming unshakable also requires acceptance. Life will not always be fair. Things will not always go your way. But resisting reality does not change it. It only creates suffering. When you accept what is, you reduce unnecessary tension. You are able to adapt and move forward instead of being stuck in frustration. This does not mean you stop trying to improve your life. It means you work with reality instead of against it. You take action where you can, and you let go where you cannot. This balance creates stability. When life gets hard, being unshakable means staying grounded. It means not losing yourself in chaos. It means trusting your ability to handle whatever comes. This trust is built over time. It comes from facing challenges, from staying consistent, from mastering your mind. As you continue this journey, you will notice a change in how you experience life. Situations that once disturbed you no longer have the same effect. You remain calm where you used to react. You stay focused where you used to get distracted. You move forward where you used to feel stuck. This is what it means to become unshakable. Not that life becomes easy, but that you become stronger. Not that challenges disappear, but that you handle them differently. So, stop waiting for life to become perfect before you feel strong. Build your strength now. Train your mind. Control your reactions. Stay consistent. Because in the end, the most powerful thing you can become is not someone who avoids difficulty, but someone who can face it without losing themselves. And once you reach that point, you realize something powerful. No matter what happens, you will be okay, because you have built a mind that cannot be easily shaken. 21. Let go of the past. You cannot move forward while carrying what is already over. One of the heaviest burdens you carry is not what is happening right now, but what has already happened. The past, your mistakes, your regrets, your missed opportunities, your failures, your heartbreaks, all of it lives in your mind, not in reality. And yet, it continues to shape how you feel, how you think, and how you see yourself. You may not realize it, but a large part of your doubt does not come from your present situation. It comes from your attachment to your past. Buddhism teaches that clinging to the past is one of the main causes of suffering, not because the past itself is painful, but because you keep reliving it. You replay moments again and again, thinking about what you should have done differently, what you could have said, how things could have turned out better. And while this may feel like reflection, most of the time it is not helping you grow, it is keeping you stuck. Think about how often your mind goes back to something that already ended, a mistake you made, a relationship that didn't work, an opportunity you lost. The event itself is over. It no longer exists in reality, but in your mind, it is still active. And every time you revisit it, you bring the same emotions back, the same regret, the same disappointment, the same self-doubt. This is what keeps you trapped, not the past itself, but your attachment to it. Because as long as you keep holding on to it, you cannot fully move forward. You are trying to step into a new version of your life while carrying the weight of your old experiences, and that creates inner conflict. One of the most important truths you need to understand is this: you cannot change the past. No matter how much you think about it, analyze it, or regret it, it will not change. But what you can change is your relationship with it. You can choose whether it controls you or teaches you. Buddhism does not tell you to ignore the past. It teaches you to learn from it without being attached to it. There is a difference between reflection and rumination. Reflection is when you look at your past to understand what happened and how you can grow from it. Rumination is when you keep thinking about it without gaining anything, just repeating the same thoughts and emotions. When you shift from rumination to reflection, something changes. You stop seeing your past as something that defines you, and you start seeing it as something that shaped you. Your mistakes become lessons. Your failures become experiences. Your regrets become awareness. And this shift removes the emotional weight that keeps you stuck. Another important aspect of letting go of the past is forgiveness. Not just forgiving others, but forgiving yourself. Many people carry guilt and self-blame for things they did or did not do. They keep telling themselves that they should have known better, that they should have done more, that they should not have made those mistakes. But this kind of thinking keeps you trapped in a version of yourself that no longer exists. The truth is, you made decisions based on the knowledge, awareness, and situation you had at that time. You were not the same person you are today. You have grown, you have learned, you have changed. Holding your current self accountable for your past self's actions is unfair. Forgiveness does not mean saying what happened was okay. It means accepting that it happened and choosing not to carry its emotional weight anymore. It means allowing yourself to move forward without being constantly pulled back by guilt or regret. Letting go of the past also requires acceptance. There are things that happened that you cannot change. There are outcomes you cannot reverse. And resisting this reality only creates more suffering. When you accept what is already over, you free yourself from the need to fight it. You stop wasting energy on something that no longer exists. This acceptance brings a sense of peace. Not because the past was perfect, but because you are no longer holding on to it. You are no longer letting it control your present moment. You are creating space for something new. Another important thing to understand is that your identity is not fixed. You are not the same person you were in the past. You are constantly changing, learning, and evolving. But when you keep holding on to your past, you limit this growth. You keep defining yourself based on who you were, instead of allowing yourself to become who you can be. When you let go, you create space for a new identity. You allow yourself to move forward without being tied to old patterns. You stop saying, "This is who I am," and you start saying, "This is who I am becoming." And this shift opens the door to real transformation. Letting go of the past also helps you stay present. When your mind is constantly focused on what already happened, you miss what is happening now. You are not fully engaged in your life. You are living in memories instead of reality. But when you release the past, you bring your attention back to the present moment. And the present moment is where your power is. It is where you can take action, make decisions, and create change. You cannot act in the past, you can only act now. And the more you focus on now, the more control you gain over your life. This does not mean the past will never come to your mind again. It will. Thoughts will appear, memories will come up. But the difference is, you will not engage with them the same way. You will notice them, acknowledge them, and let them pass without getting stuck. When life gets hard, your mind may try to bring up past failures to create doubt. It may remind you of times when things didn't work out. But when you have learned to let go, you will see these thoughts differently. You will recognize them as memories, not as proof of your future. This awareness gives you freedom. You are no longer controlled by your past. You are guided by your present. You move forward with clarity instead of carrying confusion. Over time, this practice changes how you see yourself. You stop identifying with your past mistakes. You stop limiting yourself based on old experiences. You begin to see your potential more clearly. And as you move forward, you realize something powerful. Your past was not there to hold you back. It was there to teach you. It gave you lessons. It gave you awareness. It shaped your understanding. But it was never meant to be something you carry forever. So stop holding on to what is already over. Stop reliving moments that cannot be changed. Stop defining yourself by things that no longer exist. Let go of the past, not because it didn't matter, but because you deserve to move forward without its weight. Because the moment you release what is behind you, you create space for what is ahead of you. And in that space, you find something new, clarity, peace, and the freedom to become the person you were always meant to be. 22. Take radical responsibility. Your life changes the moment you stop blaming everything else. There comes a moment in your life where everything can shift, not because your circumstances suddenly improve, not because people change, and not because the world becomes easier, but because you decide to take full responsibility for your life. This is not an easy step. In fact, it is one of the hardest truths to accept. But it is also one of the most powerful, because the moment you stop blaming everything outside of you, you take your power back. Most people live in a constant state of reaction. When something goes wrong, they look for something or someone to blame. They blame their past, their environment, their situation, other people's behavior, bad luck, or even timing. And while some of these things may be real, they do not give you control. Blame might feel justified, but it keeps you stuck. Because when you blame, you are saying, "This is not in my control," and if it is not in your control, then you cannot change it. Buddhism teaches a different way of looking at life. It teaches that while you cannot control everything that happens to you, you are always responsible for how you respond to it. And that response shapes your life more than the situation itself. Two people can go through the same experience, and one grows stronger while the other remains stuck. The difference is not what happened, it is how they chose to respond. Taking radical responsibility means accepting that your thoughts, your actions, your habits, and your decisions are shaping your life. It means recognizing that Even if you did not choose your circumstances, you are choosing how you deal with them. This is not about blaming yourself in a negative way. It is about empowering yourself in a positive way. It is about understanding that you have more control than you think, and using that control to create change. Think about how often you say things like, "I can't do this because of my situation," or "I feel this way because of what they did," or "I'm stuck because things are not going my way." These thoughts may feel true, but they also limit you. They place your power outside of you. They make your progress dependent on things you cannot control. And as long as you think this way, you will remain stuck. Now, imagine shifting your perspective. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you ask, "What can I do about this?" Instead of focusing on what is outside your control, you focus on what is within it. This simple shift changes everything. It moves you from a passive state to an active one. You stop waiting for things to change, and you start creating change yourself. One of the most important areas where responsibility matters is your thoughts. Your mind is constantly producing thoughts, but you are responsible for which ones you believe and which ones you let go. If you constantly believe negative thoughts, your mindset will reflect that. But if you question those thoughts, if you challenge them, you can change your thinking patterns. Buddhism teaches that thoughts are not facts. They are temporary mental events. But if you take responsibility for your mind, you stop letting it run uncontrolled. You start guiding it. You choose what you focus on. You choose how you interpret situations. And this changes your experience of life. Another important area is your actions. Many people know what they need to do, but they don't do it. They delay, they avoid, they wait for the right moment, and then they feel stuck. But when you take responsibility, you stop waiting, you start acting. You do what needs to be done, even when it is uncomfortable. And this action creates progress. Responsibility also applies to your habits. Your daily habits shape your life more than any single decision. If your habits are not aligned with your goals, you will struggle to move forward. But when you take responsibility for your habits, you begin to change them. You make small adjustments, and over time, those adjustments create big results. One of the hardest parts of taking responsibility is letting go of excuses. Excuses are comfortable. They protect you from discomfort. They give you a reason not to act. But they also keep you in the same place. Every excuse you make is a decision to stay where you are. And the more you rely on excuses, the more you reinforce the belief that you cannot change. But when you take responsibility, you stop making excuses. You accept that things may be difficult, but you still take action. You understand that growth requires effort, and you are willing to put in that effort. This mindset creates strength. It builds confidence. Because each time you act despite difficulty, you prove to yourself that you are capable. Responsibility also changes how you deal with failure. Instead of blaming external factors, you look at what you can learn. You ask yourself, what could I have done differently? This is not about self-criticism, it is about growth. When you take responsibility for your mistakes, you gain the ability to improve, and improvement leads to progress. Another powerful aspect of responsibility is emotional control. You are responsible for how you respond to situations. You cannot control what others do, but you can control your reaction. When you stop blaming others for your emotions, you gain control over them. You become less reactive, more stable, and more aware. This also applies to your environment. You may not be able to change everything around you, but you can influence it. You can choose who you spend time with, what you consume, and how you spend your time. These choices shape your mindset and your direction. When you take responsibility for your environment, you create conditions that support your growth. Taking responsibility is not always comfortable. It requires honesty. It requires you to face your weaknesses, your habits, your patterns, but it also gives you control. It shows you where you can improve, and that improvement leads to change. When life gets hard, it is easy to fall into blame. It is easy to say that things are unfair, that circumstances are against you, but this mindset keeps you stuck. Taking responsibility in difficult moments is what separates growth from stagnation. It allows you to move forward even when things are not perfect. As you continue to take responsibility, something begins to change inside you. You feel more in control. You feel more capable. You stop waiting for external changes and you start creating internal ones. And these internal changes eventually reflect in your external life. This creates a powerful cycle. The more you take responsibility, the more you act. The more you act, the more you see results. The more results you see, the more confident you become. And this confidence reduces doubt. Over time, you begin to trust yourself more. You know that no matter what happens, you can respond in a way that moves you forward. You stop feeling like a victim of circumstances, and you start feeling like the creator of your life. This does not mean life becomes easy. Challenges will still come, but you handle them differently. You face them with awareness, with action, and with responsibility, and that changes everything. So, stop waiting for things to change. Stop blaming everything around you. Stop giving your power away. Take responsibility for your thoughts, your actions, your habits, and your direction. Because the moment you do, you unlock something powerful, the ability to change your life from the inside out. And once you experience that, you realize something important. You were never truly stuck. You just needed to take control of what was always in your hands. 23. Accept what is clarity begins when you stop arguing with reality. One of the deepest sources of your stress, frustration, and self-doubt is not always what is happening in your life, but your resistance to it. You may not realize it, but a large part of your suffering comes from arguing with reality, from wishing things were different, from holding on to expectations that no longer match what is actually happening. And this constant inner resistance creates tension, confusion, and emotional pain that goes far beyond the situation itself. Buddhism teaches a simple but powerful truth. Suffering begins the moment you say, "This should not be happening." Because in that moment, you are not just experiencing the situation, you are fighting it. You are mentally pushing against reality, trying to change something that is already happening. And no matter how much you resist, reality does not change. The only thing that changes is your level of stress. Think about how often you feel disturbed when things don't go your way. Plans fail, people disappoint you, situations become difficult, and your mind immediately reacts. It starts questioning, complaining, resisting. Why is this happening? This is not fair. This should be different. And while these thoughts may feel natural, they do not solve anything. They only create more suffering. The truth is, reality does not need your approval. It does not change based on your expectations. It simply is. And when you keep trying to fight it, you exhaust yourself. You waste your energy on something you cannot change in that moment. This is why acceptance is so powerful. Not because it changes the situation, but because it changes your relationship with it. Acceptance does not mean you like what is happening. It does not mean you agree with it. It does not mean you stop trying to improve your situation. It simply means you acknowledge reality as it is, without adding resistance to it. You stop saying, "This should not be happening," and you start saying, "This is what is happening. Now what can I do about it?" This shift may seem small, but it changes everything. When you accept reality, you remove the extra layer of suffering created by resistance. You stop wasting energy on denial and frustration, and you start using that energy to respond effectively. You become more focused, more calm, and more clear in your thinking. One of the biggest reasons people struggle with acceptance is because they confuse it with giving up. They think that if they accept a situation, they are allowing it to stay the same. But in reality, acceptance is the first step to change, because you cannot change something you are not willing to see clearly. When you are in denial or resistance, your thinking becomes clouded. But when you accept what is, you see the situation for what it truly is, and that clarity allows you to take better action. Buddhism emphasizes the importance of seeing things as they are, not as you wish them to be. This does not mean you lose hope or stop trying to improve your life. It means you start from reality instead of illusion. You stop building your actions on expectations, and you start building them on truth. And actions based on truth are always more effective. Another important aspect of acceptance is letting go of control. When you resist reality, you are often trying to control something that is outside your control. You want people to behave differently, situations to change instantly, outcomes to match your desires. But when you accept what is, you recognize what is within your control and what is not. You focus on your actions, your responses, and your mindset, instead of trying to control everything around you. This creates a sense of calm, not because life becomes easier, but because you are no longer fighting it at every step. You move with life instead of against it, and this makes everything feel lighter. Acceptance also reduces self-doubt. When things go wrong, your mind often creates negative interpretations. It tells you that you are not good enough, that you failed, that something is wrong with you. But when you accept the situation without adding these interpretations, you remove unnecessary pressure. You see the event as it is, not as a reflection of your worth, and this allows you to move forward without being weighed down by negative thinking. Another powerful effect of acceptance is emotional stability. When you resist reality, your emotions become intense and overwhelming. You feel frustrated, angry, or anxious. But when you accept what is happening, your emotions become more manageable. You still feel them, but they do not control you. You are able to stay calm and grounded, even in difficult situations. Acceptance also helps you stay present. When you are constantly wishing things were different, your mind is stuck in the past or the future. You are either thinking about what should have happened or what you want to happen. But when you accept the present moment, you bring your attention back to now. And the present moment is the only place where you can take action. This awareness allows you to respond more effectively. Instead of reacting emotionally, you make decisions with clarity. You take steps that move you forward. And over time, these steps create change. It is important to understand that acceptance is not a one-time decision. It is a practice. Your mind will continue to resist certain situations. It will continue to create expectations and judgments. But each time you notice this, you have a choice. You can continue resisting, or you can accept. And each time you choose acceptance, you strengthen your ability to stay calm and clear. When life gets hard, acceptance becomes even more important. This is when your mind wants to resist the most. It wants to reject the situation, to fight it, to deny it. But this only increases your suffering. When you accept the difficulty, you reduce the emotional weight. You are able to think more clearly and take better action. Acceptance also allows you to learn from your experiences. When you are resisting, you are focused on what is wrong. But when you accept, you are open to understanding. You ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this help me grow? And this mindset turns challenges into opportunities. As you continue to practice acceptance, you begin to feel more at peace. Not because your life is perfect, but because you are no longer fighting it. You are working with it. You are responding instead of reacting. and this creates a sense of stability that is not easily shaken. Over time, you realize something powerful. Life becomes much lighter when you stop arguing with it. You stop trying to control everything. You stop resisting what you cannot change, and you start focusing on what you can do. So stop fighting reality. Stop wishing things were different. Stop creating unnecessary suffering through resistance. Accept what is. See it clearly. Respond to it wisely. Because the moment you stop arguing with reality, you gain something far more valuable: clarity, peace, and the ability to move forward with strength. 24. Build yourself quietly. Real growth doesn't need to be seen to be powerful. One of the biggest traps that keeps you doubting yourself and feeling stuck is the need to show your progress before it is fully built. You want validation, recognition, and visible proof that you are improving. You want people to notice your growth, to acknowledge your efforts, to see that you are becoming something more. But Buddhism teaches something very different. The most powerful growth happens quietly, away from attention, away from noise, away from the need to prove anything to anyone. Think about it carefully. When you focus too much on being seen, your attention shifts from growth to approval. Instead of working on yourself, you start performing for others. You begin to measure your progress based on how people react to you, how much attention you get, how much validation you receive. And this creates a fragile sense of confidence, one that depends on external recognition instead of internal strength. But real growth does not need an audience. It does not need to be announced, displayed, or constantly shared. In fact, the more you focus on building quietly, the more authentic and powerful your growth becomes, because when no one is watching, you are forced to be honest with yourself. You are not doing it for praise, you are doing it for progress. Buddhism emphasizes inner work, the kind of work that is not visible on the surface. The work of understanding your mind, controlling your reactions, letting go of attachments, building discipline, and developing awareness. These changes do not happen overnight, and they are not always visible to others, but they are the foundation of everything you become. Imagine a building being constructed. Before anything is visible above the ground, a strong foundation is built below it. That foundation is not seen, but it supports everything that comes after. If the foundation is weak, the entire structure becomes unstable. Your personal growth works the same way. The work you do in silence, the habits you build, the mindset you develop, the discipline you practice, all of it forms the foundation of your future. The problem is, most people skip this phase. They want quick results. They want visible change without doing the inner work. And because of that, their progress is unstable. They may improve for a short time, but without a strong foundation, they fall back into old patterns. Building yourself quietly removes this pressure. You are no longer trying to impress anyone. You are no longer rushing your growth. You are simply focusing on becoming better, step by step, day by day. And this creates a deeper, more stable form of progress. Another important aspect of quiet growth is patience. When you are not seeking constant validation, you are more willing to take your time. You understand that real change takes effort and consistency. You stop comparing your progress to others. You stop rushing the process. And in that patience, your growth becomes more natural and sustainable. Quiet growth also protects your energy. When you constantly share your plans, your goals, your progress, you expose yourself to opinions, expectations, and distractions. People may doubt you, criticize you, or influence your direction. This can create confusion and self-doubt. But when you work quietly, you protect your focus. You keep your energy directed toward your growth instead of external noise. Buddhism teaches detachment from external validation. It teaches that your worth does not come from what others think of you, but from your own awareness and understanding of yourself. When you build yourself quietly, you strengthen this internal sense of worth. You become less dependent on approval and more grounded in your own progress. Another powerful benefit of quiet growth is that it builds discipline. When no one is watching, there is no pressure to perform. The only thing guiding you is your commitment to yourself. And this is where real discipline is developed. Not when you are motivated, not when you are being praised, but when you continue working, even when it is unnoticed. This discipline becomes a part of your identity. You become someone who shows up, who puts in effort, who continues moving forward regardless of external recognition. And this identity is far more powerful than any temporary motivation. Quiet growth also changes how you handle success. When you build yourself without seeking attention, your confidence comes from within. It is not based on how others see you, but on what you know you have built. This creates a stable sense of self. You are not easily affected by praise or criticism. You remain grounded, focused, and aware. When life gets hard, this quiet strength becomes your advantage. You are not easily shaken because your growth is not based on external factors. You have built yourself from the inside out. You have developed resilience, awareness, and discipline that cannot be taken away by external situations. Another important thing to understand is that not all progress needs to be visible. Some of the most important changes happen internally. You may not see immediate results, but you are becoming more patient, more focused, more aware. You are handling situations better, thinking more clearly, and reacting less impulsively. These changes may not be obvious to others, but they are transforming your life. This also reduces self-doubt. When you are focused on your own growth, you are less likely to compare yourself to others. You are not measuring your progress based on external standards. You are looking at your own improvement, your own journey. And this creates a sense of confidence that is not dependent on comparison. Building yourself quietly also allows you to move with intention. You are not reacting to every opinion or distraction. You are following your own path. You are making decisions based on your understanding, not on external pressure. This clarity helps you stay consistent and focused. Over time, your quiet efforts begin to show. Not because you were trying to prove something, but because your growth becomes visible naturally. Your mindset changes. Your actions become more aligned. Your presence becomes stronger, and people begin to notice, not because you were seeking attention, but because your transformation is real. This is the power of quiet growth. It is not loud, but it is strong. It is not immediate, but it is lasting. It is not based on validation, but on self-mastery. So stop trying to prove yourself. Stop seeking constant recognition. Stop rushing your growth for the sake of being seen. Focus on building yourself quietly. Focus on your habits, your mindset, your discipline. Do the work when no one is watching. Improve in silence. Grow without needing attention. Because in the end, what truly matters is not how quickly others notice your growth, but how deeply you have built it within yourself. And when that foundation is strong, nothing can shake it. 25. Choose yourself. Stop abandoning your path to please the world. There is a quiet pattern that destroys more potential than failure ever could, and most people never even notice it. It is the habit of abandoning yourself. Not in one big decision, but in small, repeated moments where you choose approval over truth, comfort over growth, and other people's expectations over your own path. And every time you do this, something inside you weakens. Your clarity fades, your confidence drops, and doubt slowly takes control. Buddhism teaches that suffering often comes from attachment, not just to people or outcomes, but to approval, to being liked, to being accepted. You want to fit in, you want to be understood, you want people to agree with you, and in that desire, you start adjusting yourself. You change your actions, your decisions, even your identity, just to avoid rejection or discomfort. But the more you do this, the more disconnected you become from who you really are. Think about how often you hold yourself back. You stay silent when you should speak. You follow paths that don't feel right just because they are accepted. You avoid taking risks because you are afraid of what others might think. And while this may keep things comfortable on the surface, it creates inner conflict. Because deep down, you know you are not fully being yourself. This is where doubt begins. Not because you are incapable, but because you are not aligned. You are trying to move forward while constantly stepping away from your own truth. And this creates confusion. You don't know what you really want anymore, because you have spent so much time trying to match what others expect. Choosing yourself is not about becoming selfish or ignoring others. It is about honoring your path. It is about recognizing that your life is yours to live, not something to shape based on external approval. It means making decisions that align with your values, your goals, and your growth, even when they are uncomfortable or misunderstood. One of the hardest parts of choosing yourself is facing the fear of judgment. Your mind will tell you that if you don't follow expectations, you will be criticized, rejected, or left behind. And this fear is powerful. It keeps you stuck in familiar patterns. But the truth is, no matter what you do, you will always be judged by someone. Trying to avoid judgment is a losing game. Buddhism teaches detachment from opinions. It reminds you that other people's thoughts are shaped by their own experiences, beliefs, and perspectives. They do not define your worth or your direction. When you understand this, you stop giving so much power to external voices. You begin to trust your own. Choosing yourself also means taking responsibility for your life. It means accepting that your happiness, your growth, and your direction depend on your decisions. You cannot wait for others to guide you, approve you, or validate you. You have to step into that role yourself. And this can feel uncomfortable at first, because it requires independence. But it is also where your strength comes from. Another important aspect of choosing yourself is setting boundaries. Not everything deserves your time, your energy, or your attention. When you constantly say yes to everything, you drain yourself. You lose focus. You become overwhelmed. But when you learn to say no, when you protect your time and energy, you create space for what truly matters. Boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about protecting your growth. They allow you to stay aligned with your path without being pulled in every direction. And this alignment is what builds confidence. Because when your actions match your values, you feel more stable, more clear, and less doubtful. Choosing yourself also requires letting go of the need to please everyone. This is one of the biggest obstacles to growth. When you try to make everyone happy, you end up compromising yourself. You make decisions based on what others want, not what you need. And over time, this creates frustration and regret. But when you accept that you cannot please everyone, you free yourself. You start making choices based on what is right for you, not what is acceptable to others. This does not mean you ignore others completely, but it means you do not sacrifice yourself to satisfy them. Another important shift happens when you stop seeking constant validation. When your self-worth depends on others' approval, you become unstable. A positive comment makes you feel good. A negative one brings you down. Your confidence rises and falls based on external feedback. But when you choose yourself, you begin to validate yourself. You recognize your efforts, your progress, your growth. And this creates a stable sense of confidence. This internal validation is powerful. It allows you to move forward without needing constant reassurance. It helps you stay focused on your path, even when others don't understand it. It reduces doubt, because you are no longer questioning yourself based on external opinions. Choosing yourself also means embracing discomfort. Growth is not always easy. It requires making difficult decisions, stepping into uncertainty, and facing challenges. But when you are aligned with your path, this discomfort feels meaningful. It is not something you avoid, it is something you move through. Buddhism teaches that discomfort is part of growth. It is not something to fear, but something to understand. When you stop avoiding discomfort, you expand your capacity. You become stronger, more resilient, and more confident in your ability to handle life. When life gets hard, choosing yourself becomes even more important. This is when you are most likely to fall back into old patterns, to seek comfort, to follow what feels safe. But this is also when your decisions matter the most. If you can stay aligned with your path during difficult times, you build real strength. Over time, choosing yourself changes everything. You become more clear about what you want. You make decisions with confidence. You stop second-guessing yourself. You move forward with purpose instead of confusion. And most importantly, you build a life that feels true to you, not one based on expectations, but one based on your own values and direction. This creates a deep sense of fulfillment that cannot be replaced by external approval. So stop abandoning yourself. Stop sacrificing your path to fit into someone else's expectations. Stop choosing comfort over growth. Choose yourself. Choose your direction. Choose your growth. Because the moment you do, you take your power back. And once you take that power back, doubt begins to fade, clarity begins to rise, and your life begins to align in a way that finally feels right. 26. Stay with the process. Progress is quiet, but it never lies. There comes a phase in every journey where everything feels uncertain. You are putting in effort, you are trying to improve, you are doing what you believe is right, but the results are not visible yet. Nothing dramatic is happening. No big breakthrough, no clear reward, no obvious sign that you are moving forward. And in that silence, your mind begins to doubt. It asks, is this even working? Am I wasting my time? Should I stop and try something else? This is the moment where most people give up, not because they are incapable, but because they cannot see their progress. They mistake lack of visible results for lack of growth, and because of that, they walk away from something that was actually working beneath the surface. Buddhism teaches a powerful truth about this phase. Progress is often invisible before it becomes visible. Just because you cannot see change does not mean it is not happening. Growth does not always show itself immediately. In fact, the most important changes are often the ones you cannot see at first. They happen quietly, internally, in your mindset, your habits, your awareness, and your discipline. Think about how a seed grows. When it is planted in the ground, nothing seems to happen. Days pass, maybe even weeks, and there is no visible change. But beneath the surface, something is happening. Roots are forming, strength is developing, the foundation is being built. And only after this process is complete does the plant begin to appear above the ground. Your growth works the same way. The effort you are putting in, the habits you are building, the discipline you are practicing, all of it is creating change beneath the surface. But because you cannot see it immediately, your mind starts to doubt it. The problem is not your lack of progress. The problem is your need for immediate proof. You want results now. You want confirmation that what you are doing is working. But real growth does not follow your timeline. It follows its own process. And when you try to rush that process, you create frustration and doubt. Staying with the process means trusting what you cannot yet see. It means continuing your effort even when results are not obvious. It means understanding that progress is not always loud or visible, but it is always happening when you are consistent. One of the biggest challenges in this phase is comparison. You look at others who seem to be progressing faster. You see their results, their success, their visible growth, and you begin to question your own journey. You feel like you are behind, like you are not doing enough, like something is wrong with your approach. But what you don't see is their process. You don't see the time, effort, and struggle it took them to get there. You only see the outcome. And when you compare your current stage to someone else's visible success, you create an unfair standard. Buddhism teaches that each path is unique. Your journey is not meant to look like anyone else's. Your timing is your own. When you stop comparing and start focusing on your own process, you remove unnecessary pressure. You allow yourself to grow at your own pace. Another important aspect of staying with the process is patience. Not passive waiting, but active patience. The kind where you continue to take action, continue to improve, continue to move forward, even when progress feels slow. This patience is not weakness, it is strength. It is the ability to stay committed without needing constant rewards. When you develop this patience, your mindset changes. You stop chasing quick results, you stop looking for shortcuts, you focus on the work itself. And this creates a deeper level of growth. Because now, you are not doing it for immediate outcomes. You are doing it because it is part of who you are becoming. Consistency plays a huge role here. Progress is not built in one moment, it is built over time. Each small action, each repeated effort, each day you show up, it all adds up. And while each step may seem small, together they create something powerful. The problem is, your mind often dismisses small progress. It focuses on what is missing instead of what is improving. It tells you that you are not where you want to be yet, so your effort does not matter. But this thinking is what keeps you stuck. Because when you ignore small progress, you lose motivation to continue. When you start recognizing your progress, even in small ways, your mindset shifts. You begin to see that you are moving forward. You feel more encouraged. And this encouragement helps you stay consistent. Another challenge in this phase is doubt. When results are not visible, doubt becomes louder. It tells you that maybe this is not the right path. Maybe you are not capable. Maybe you should stop. But this doubt is not based on reality. It is based on uncertainty. Buddhism teaches that thoughts are not always reliable. Just because you feel doubt does not mean you should follow it. Doubt is a natural part of growth, especially when you are stepping into something new, but it is not a signal to stop. It is a signal to stay aware and continue moving forward. Staying with the process also requires discipline. Motivation will not always be there. There will be days when you don't feel like continuing, when everything feels slow, when doubt feels strong. But discipline is what keeps you going. It is the ability to act regardless of how you feel. Each time you continue despite doubt, you build strength. You prove to yourself that you are not controlled by temporary emotions. And this builds confidence. Not because you have achieved your goal yet, but because you trust your ability to keep going. Another powerful shift happens when you focus on the present moment. Instead of constantly thinking about results, you focus on what you can do right now. You take the next step. You complete the next task. You improve in small ways. This reduces overwhelm and keeps you moving forward. Buddhism emphasizes the present moment because it is the only place where action exists. The future is uncertain, the past is gone, but the present is where you can create change. When you stay present, you stay engaged in the process, and this engagement leads to progress. Over time, something begins to change. The small steps start to add up. The invisible progress becomes visible. The habits you built become part of your identity. The discipline you practiced becomes natural. And suddenly, you begin to see results. But these results are not sudden. They are the outcome of everything you have been doing quietly over time. They are the result of staying consistent when it was difficult, of continuing when it was uncertain, of trusting the process when you could not see it. This is why staying with the process is so important, because the moment you quit, you stop that progress. You walk away before the results appear. But when you stay, when you continue, you eventually reach a point where your effort becomes visible. And in that moment, you realize something powerful. Progress was happening all along. You just couldn't see it yet. So, stop doubting your effort just because you don't see immediate results. Stop comparing your journey to others. Stop expecting instant change. Stay with the process. Trust your effort. Keep moving forward. Because real progress is quiet, but it never lies. And if you continue long enough, it will reveal itself in ways you never expected. Now step back for a moment and look at everything you've just understood. Every lesson, every realization, every shift in perspective. It all leads to one powerful truth. Your struggle was never here to destroy you, it was here to shape you. But the only reason it ever felt like suffering is because you doubted yourself in the middle of it. You thought something was wrong when life got hard. You thought you were falling behind when things slowed down. You thought you were failing when things didn't go your way. But now you see it differently. You see that doubt was never the truth. It was just a voice in your mind. You see that struggle was never an obstacle. It was the path itself. Every moment you overthought, every time you compared yourself, every time you resisted reality, every time you ran from discomfort, it only made things heavier. But the moment you started observing your mind, accepting what is, letting go of what you cannot control, and taking responsibility for your life, everything began to shift. You are not weak for feeling doubt. You are not lost because things are unclear. You are not behind because your progress is slow. You are in the process, and the process is where transformation happens. Quietly, gradually, powerfully. Understand this clearly. You don't need perfect conditions to move forward. You don't need everything figured out. You don't need constant motivation or external validation. What you need is awareness, discipline, and the willingness to keep going even when it's uncomfortable. Because the person you want to become is not built in comfort. They are built in moments where you choose to stay instead of quit, to act instead of avoid, to trust instead of doubt. Life will still test you. People will still disappoint you. Situations will still become difficult. But now, you are different. Now, you understand that your peace is your responsibility. Your focus is your power. Your growth is your choice. And the more you apply these lessons, the more something inside you becomes unshakable. Not loud, not forced, but quietly strong. A mind that does not panic when things go wrong. A mindset that does not collapse under pressure. A version of you that keeps moving forward no matter what happens. So, stop doubting yourself every time life gets hard. That is the exact moment you are being tested, shaped, and prepared. Trust your path, trust your effort, trust the process. Because one day, you will look back at this phase of your life and realize something powerful. Nothing was working against you. Everything was working on you.